over the course of the next 3 and a bit hours, myself and Steve Proudly. My name's Alex Goldschmidt. You might recognise us from SimSport Racing, amongst other platforms. But Steve, definitely very, very wet weather conditions here ahead of 3 hours of racing. And I think a couple of drivers have been saying, rather than it's raining, it's mamma mia, in terms of the two SimSport Racing teams that are on the front row.
Yeah, absolutely, mate, and hello and welcome to everyone watching. Obviously, the body clock's a bit messed up because this is Saturday afternoon and not an evening like we used to commentating, Alex, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. We've got a reasonably big grid.
With a variety of
qualifying also was
over the course of the next 3 and a bit hours, myself and Steve Proudly. My name's Alex Goldschmidt. You might recognise us from SimSport Racing, amongst other platforms. But Steve, definitely,
it is indeed. We're about to find out.
Well, looks to be
destination lap to start, and yeah, certainly they've got dry conditions.
So with regards to the starting grid, it's going to be the number 52 SimSport Racing Ferrari that will be on pole position, and alongside, and that's with Regan Mitchell and Dave Hedges. Please excuse some of the pronunciations that myself and Steve might have over the course of the next 3 and a bit hours. So it's Regan Mitchell who's starting in the car in the number 52. Alongside him will be teammate Dave Hedges. Then it's Steve Haley and Aaron Walker in the 24 Ferrari, also from SimSport Racing, there alongside. Then it's Lightning Monkeys in the 707 Mercedes with Daniel Ruiz and Javier Berrio. Then it's Esports Designs number 80 Audi with Steve Hinden and John Clements with I think that's CS Geo Racing, the 137 Porsche 911 of Wojciech Morin and Radoslav Makuch in 5th. Then it's Dark Sky Racing with Sam Spenkelink and Nard Cox in the 54 BMW. The Artworks Bentley of Marcel Vies and Dave Junior in the 969 Bentley. Pulse Motorsport A in the 777 Ferrari. That's Damien De Keyser and Patrick Vanst. Then we've got Dakar Racing B in the 77 Mercedes with Kuhn Scepter and Dimitri Schenk. Then we got Inertia featuring GPR in the 166 Audi with
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I say, the qualifying, it's close for some of the guys, but obviously we all know that, yes, it's nice to be at the sharp end of the grid, but with a driver swap race and certainly a 3-hour driver swap race, it's going to be very, very interesting. Tactics are going to play a big part of it. Also, the weather. We've seen in past driver swap races of this sort of length that the weather can play a massive, massive part of it, especially if it starts dry and we head into some rain later on. Makes some fantastic viewing for everyone watching, but it causes a lot of headaches for the drivers taking part, and some big decisions to make if that does happen, of when to start changing tyres and things. And they've also got to work that into the mandatory pit stops that they have to make this afternoon, which I believe is 3 mandatory pit stops, and at each to be a mandatory pit stop they have to swap drivers. Is that right? I think that's correct, Alex.
Yes, that is the case, Steve, and maximum driver stints of 70 minutes, an hour and 10 minutes. Tyre change and refuelling up to the individual teams and is not mandatory, as we're about to go on to the formation lap. Flashing headlights is not acceptable to distract the driver in front. However, they can be used to assist in lapping a back marker. Looks like we're going to get the formation lap underway. So 29 cars on the grid here at the Hungaroring. So a blue flag driver is not allowed to defend his track position against the lapping car and should stay on his or her racing line. Be predictable, don't change direction all of a sudden. Unnecessary holding up and defending against the lap car may result in a penalty. And it's the responsibility of the blue flag driver that should let the lapping car by at the earliest, safest opportunity. Not do it mid-corner. And then obviously the indicators are recommended to be used by the driver that is being lapped on that particular occasion. The lapping car cannot, the car that is actually putting the lap on to the driver in front is not allowed to force his or her way through, and endanger both not just the driver on the that's being blue flagged, but also themselves. So, it's and there's also another one that if a team disconnects from the server during the race, then they have to inform the stewards live by text in the relevant disconnect channel, and then they'll be advised when they can actually be given permission to do so. So that's also going to be another thing that we're going to have to really keep our eyes on, aren't we, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe they're running a full course yellow for that. If that occurs, because when you're running custom skins, as many people who drive and watch ACC events know that custom skins cause a massive lag spike of sort of round about 2-3 seconds sometimes, and when you're driving flat out, that's a big lag spike, and it can end a race, to be honest. So basically they advise all the drivers it's a full course yellow. Normally that would mean they drive around on the pit limiter, and then they tell the team that it is safe to join, and so they're rejoining while the cars are doing relatively low speeds, and hopefully in a safe sort of environment, and then the full course yellow will be removed and off they go.
Okay, well, just to run through the rest of the 29 strong grid, I'm going to go through car makes and numbers as well. There are a couple of team names that we can't really sort of say on there because there are a couple of few expletives in there, but we'll give you the numbers and the types of cars, so when we can actually say the team names. So in 11th in the 313 pair of Pink Pigs Porsche, you've then got the number 12 Sim Racing Holland Lexus in 12th position. Lork driving in the 33 Lexus will be starting in 13th ahead of Dakar Racing A in the 125 Mercedes AMG GT3. Pulse Motorsport B in the number 98 Ferrari starts 15th ahead of One Fast One Furious in the 301 Bentley. And then we've got the 131 Bentley starting in 17th. The Honda NSX 97 of Chimuwangamu in 18th ahead of Rapid Lawnmowers in the 90 Ferrari. Contact Racing, the number 737 Aston starts 20th ahead of Drunen. The number 1 Mercedes in 21st ahead of Mode 11 Racing in the 11 Lexus. The Audi Sport Team Hubba Hubba Hop in the 84 Audi. Back Row Brothers in the 747 Aston Martin starts 24th ahead of the 25th place McLaren of Dynamic Racing. As it looks like the green flag has waved, we are underway down into turn 1 for the first time. And it's looking four abreast nearly at the front of the field, and it looks like it's going to be a SimSport Racing 1-2, but who's going to get the looks like a bit of a moment there for Steve Hinton, who loses a bit of momentum, drops down into 5th place, but it is a SimSport Racing 1-2 at the moment as they head down into turn 2 for the first time. Very, very clean so far, apart from a car going off in the background on the outside of turn number 2, so the drivers really having to get into things very, very quickly. And at the moment it's 16 degrees Celsius air temperature, cloudy overhead, optimum track conditions as the Bentley, the multicolored Bentley there runs a little bit wide, and there is Stephen Haley who is currently behind Regan Mitchell, so it looks like it is a SimSport Racing 1-2, and it is exactly the way that things ended after qualifying, Steve, but all in all pretty clean so far for the majority of the field.
Yeah, it's looking relatively clean. I did notice, but I didn't notice who it was, but when they were coming around to take the start, a car did dive into the pit lane, so maybe somebody had got the wrong tyres on, not enough fuel, whatever, they made some sort of mistake, but it's certainly looking like Haley's under a lot of pressure there for that second place by Makuch. Is that? I think I might need your help with pronunciation this afternoon.
That is that's the 137 Porsche that started in 5th place. So you've got Wojciech Morin in the other driver. So Yeah, Radoslav Makush making up good pace there, and it looks like we've got one of the Audis behind. One of the Mercedes behind. That is the 707 of Lightning Monkeys, and that is Daniel Ruiz just behind. But the gap between Mitchell and Haley now just over half a second. So the two Ferraris, they were hoping for no need for someone to do a rain dance as Makush goes defensive on Ruiz as Hinden closes up on them. And then just behind you've got the 969 Bentley Continental of Artworks is Marcel Wies rounding out the top 6. Then it's Sem Spenkelink in the 54 BMW from Dark Sky Racing rounding out the top 7. And then it looks like we have got Henry Mittinen in the pair of Pink Pigs Porsche now in 8th place ahead of Kuhn Scepter in the 77 Mercedes Dakar Racing B with that is Zimmerman, Simon Zimmerman in the Inertia featuring GPR 166 Audi R8 LMS, and we go on board with Sam Spankelink from Dark Sky Racing in the 54 BMW, trying to close up with Marcel Wies. A little bit of a dust kick up there by one of the cars in front, possibly, as it looks like Hinden has been passed. Not quite yet. No, Hinden's still keeping ahead of Marcel Wies. So there is the number 80 Audi. And at the moment you can see all the way down to 23rd on the screen at the moment. And I'm just keeping an eye. It looks like there's a good bit of pace made by Evan Nasafas, who's running with Lee Mosley and Denise Pope in the number 79 TH Racing Crew McLaren. They're already up 5 places in the first 2.5 minutes of this race. 2 hours 56 minutes and 26 seconds still to go. We're about to go on to lap number 3. There is Evan Natafas, now looks to be down in 22nd place, but looks to be having a bit of pressure from behind courtesy of one of the Ferraris, and that is the number 90 of Klaus Vester in the number 90 Rapid Lawnmowers Ferrari that has dropped all the way down from 19th to 23rd position, so a drop of 5 places, but Vester looking up the inside and is half-assed through turn 1, can't make it through. They're going to go through the slight right-hand kink shortly, which is known as turn 1A. So there is a 1A and there is also a 12A here at the Hungaroring. So even though there are 14 corners, there's a couple of A's here and there.
It's absolutely, it's a fantastic track, and it's really promoting some very close racing in these opening stages at the moment, Alex. And there's some good battles throughout the field, as it's quite difficult really to pick who to watch at the moment, just to get those live battles and get as much information out there, because there is so much going on. But we can really see that the 2 SimSport cars at the moment are managing just to make a little bit of a break for it. Obviously I don't think Haley's looking to put Mitchell under any sort of pressure. Whether he can or not is another question, but I think they're just really looking to get the heads down, get to race pace and make some headway, as it were, which I think they are now doing, because if we look back to 3rd spot, you can just see that gap is starting to open up.
Yeah, well, the thing is that Haley on his last lap, after 2 laps, put in a 1:44.682, and that was nearly a tenth quicker than Regan Mitchell. So it looks like the Ferraris are starting to get some pace, but Makush was actually fastest in sector number 2 with a 38.223. But Regan Mitchell has just put in a 1:44.079, nearly 2 tenths quicker than Haley. That gap is starting to extend at the front of the field, and the gap between Haley and Makush for 2nd and 3rd position now extending to just over a second.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's as much as it's a team game in the drivers. I think it's a team game when you have got more than one car in there. You're obviously not wanting to put anyone under any excessive pressure. But from other leagues and other races, we know how fast Regan Mitchell can be. And interestingly, Regan Mitchell usually gets faster as the event progresses as well, doesn't he, Alex?
He does, and at least they've got an Italian stallion that doesn't need to go sideways like the Maseratis that they run in SimSport Racing's Season 3 of GT4, which is happening this next Wednesday. But the thing is that Mitchell and Hedges are a very, very good pair. They practice a lot on their respective servers. They put in a lot of hard work, as of Steve Haley and Aaron Walker, who also work in a team as well. There's the 747 Aston Martin, who is now trying to close up. It looks like Evan Natafas has dropped down to 27th, which is where they qualified earlier on, and that is Gintatos Bartkus in the Back Row Brothers Aston Martin, running at the top 22 and is being closed in on by Jurjen van Dijk in Team Polizei in the 144 Ferrari 488, and then De Keyser is not too far behind either in the 777 Ferrari. And they are looking to, I think that is the 777 Ferrari. Yes, I am correct there. And that is the, so I think at the end of the day, Steve, these drivers really need to get a handle on the pace. Okay, the cloud cover is going to cause some sort of problems as Daniel Ruiz has actually got past Steve Hinden in the meantime, and has got a bit of a gap between himself and Hinden, but Hinden closes up through turn 1. So the Mercedes and the Audi pretty much level on pace, and it looks like Hinden and his teammate John Clements, they've really got that package together on the Audi, and it's proving to be a bit of a handful for the Mercedes in front.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we know John Clements is a pretty good driver from the events he's done with SimSport. We've seen him quite a lot on the track, and he's very, very consistent. Is John, and Steve Hinden himself as well. He's a developing driver. He's getting faster and faster the more time he puts into ACC. When he's not busy doing the designs. And just a shout out to Steve Hinden with the esports designs. He does some fantastic liveries for many teams, and not just in the sim world. He's been involved in real world. So it just the two worlds are combining, as it were, the more time people put into this. But yeah, Steve's really fast, and he's really putting that third place under pressure at the minute, although he's obviously lost that position, but he's looking to try and get it back.
Yeah, that's 4th, so but Hinden incredibly close on the braking zone behind Ruiz, but look, Makush isn't that far ahead. He's not that far ahead anyway, so when you look at it, between these three, the gap is now from Makush to Hinden. It is now around about 7.5 tenths, if that, and Hinden's closing all the time on Ruiz. So effectively, what this is allowing, and for those wondering that have just joined us, I hope you're enjoying the show so far, as we're fast approaching the completion of the first 10 minutes in around 60 seconds time. But the strategy here, and it's a good one from Hinden. Oh, he sends it from nowhere. Absolutely catches Daniel Ruiz.
Contact.
He tags him. So that will be investigated. That has dropped Hinden out of the top 5. That's dropped him down to 7th. And so Marcel Weiss is now catching Daniel Ruiz. And then you've got Zimmerman, but Hinden, nice save from him, but he absolutely sent it up the inside. I think Ruiz got caught unawares, went to turn in, and he's clobbered the left rear of Hinden, and it sent the Audi spinning. But good recovery from Steve Hinden to now get himself back into the elbows out sort of situation here.
Yeah, I mean that move from Steve Hinden there, it was a good move. To be fair, it was firm but fair. We saw that Ruiz had to he went to turn in and he had to correct, and it just unsettled his car, I think, which led to maybe the contact. I don't think there was anything malicious in it. It was just one of those things. But yeah, as you say, Steve Hinden, fantastic job to recover, and look at him, he's straight back on. He's charging again, and he's looking to make those places up. I won't say he won't be happy. I don't think he'll be angry with it. I think he'll see that it was a racing incident potentially. Maybe a bit of a sloppy racing incident, but he's going to put that to the back of his mind until the end of the race and just try and charge forward again.
Yeah, well, it looks like he's got to try and get past Zimmerman in the 166 just ahead, and then Weiss in the 969 Bentley. So Hinden will see this as an opportunity just to regain lost ground, and that's the thing. We're so early into this race that, okay, he might have dropped down 3 positions, but he's still got that chance to really go for it. And one of the good things about it is that by having the slipstream, it means that it's going to save the tyres a little bit, it's going to save the fuel a little bit, as Zimmerman, looking up the inside of Marcel Weiss into turn 1, thinks better of it. That's another good point, because the drivers won't have to work so hard behind the wheel, but you'll get the buffeting because of the dirty air that the car in front is actually punching through.
Yeah, absolutely, and I believe our leaders, I think they've actually just lapped the first car. I think, am I right in thinking there's somebody dropping through the field a little bit? I can't quite make out who it is at the minute, Alex. I'm not sure if you've noticed.
Well, it looks like there's a couple of cars, one of which is the MFR Team Edison Mercedes of Alana Day-Porter and Myron Edwards, with Edwards behind the wheel. That's the 587 Mercedes. And then we've got the 967 Dynamic Racing McLaren. They're currently 28th at the minute, and that's got Sandoval, Matus Marques, and Evren Yamach. So that is going to be. I think it is the 587 Mercedes according to our live timing. You can head to pitwall.live. You can sign in via Facebook or Google and use the light edition, and then head to Sim Racing Hub International. You'll find the live timing there to follow all the way through the next 2 hours, 47 minutes and 55 seconds as we go to Joseph Parker in the number 66 Bentley.
Yeah, he's putting I can't even say his name now. Semplink under real pressure now in the Aston.
No, Semplink's up in 8th. That is the 737
Slapek, isn't it? Sorry,
yeah,
Sebastian.
Sebastian, Concept Racing, and they're really being pressurised now for 19th position as Bartkus closing on Parker for 20th place. So still a lot of action to go, but I think one of the biggest things is that I think that with the cloud cover, okay, we've got no rain. There's no rain predicted over the next 30 minutes. The drivers are going to really find that, okay, the colder conditions are going to help a little bit. Here comes Parker trying to go towards the inside of Schlapek, into the inside of T1, goes up the inside, gets the position. Schlapek trying to counter-attack through into T1A. But that was a great move from Parker. Nicely timed. Well, just had the measure of the Aston Martin going through turn 1 there, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. And another move that we have actually just missed, I think, Alex, is Haley's got past Mitchell and is 1.7 seconds up the road now from Mitchell. So he's got the move done. Whether that was a considered team move or whether Mitchell's made a mistake, I'm not quite sure. But Haley's got the lead, and he's actually he's stretching his legs now, and he put in his last lap was half a second faster than Mitchell. So he's certainly got his head down.
Yeah, looks like the 587 Mercedes of MFR Team Edition is actually in the pits. So whether there's been an incident, now they did qualify down in 28th position, but there was a bit of argy-bargy on the very first lap, so we don't know whether that was up and down the order. But yeah, Steve Haley has got a gap of 2.2 seconds over Regan Mitchell. So I'm wondering if Mitchell actually had a bit of a mistake earlier on, but Haley is actually running. He's running over half a second quicker now, but Mitchell starting to try and close that gap back. But Haley's really got a good run in that number 24 Ferrari at the moment.
Yeah, well, the guys will be settling into a groove now, won't they? They've got a few laps under the belt, 8 laps completed for most of them now, so they'll certainly have got everything up to temperature. The track should be somewhere near optimum. It's saying optimum on the screen. It's dry, the temperature's pretty warm, so everything will be coming to them. Everything's there for them to put some decent laps in and just get the heads down and try and build some sort of gap so that when they start making the pit stops, there's a little bit of room for tolerance, shall we say. Not so much mistakes, but just that little bit of caution when you're entering the pits, maybe, so you don't break the speed limit and get drive-through penalties, silly things like that. So yeah, they'll have their heads down and they'll all be falling into some sort of consistent rhythm now, unlike some of the drivers further back that'll be finding it hard to do that because they're constantly battling, and when you're battling, it's hard to get into a rhythm because you're obviously looking all around you, you're looking in your mirrors, you're having to maybe take a defensive line slightly, you're changing your lines if you're attacking, so it's very difficult to get into a rhythm when some of the guys are battling as close as they are.
Yeah, well, I've just opened up the YouTube chat on the dedicated Sim Racing Hub International TV channel. Good to see some familiar faces from Sim Sport Racing. Paul Lindsay, Adam Isalovic. We've also got the likes of our good friends Mike Neutelings saying good luck Sim Sport. Ariane van der Linde says good luck all, great live streaming, great commentary. Thank you, Ariane, appreciate that. Rich Smith saying good luck to, you can see that everyone's called out of the woodwork to watch this, haven't they?
Just a quick word on that while we're watching. I mean, it's great because it's communities coming together as ever. Community racing, you get a certain amount of league racing within a community, but then when a community like SRHI put on this event and they throw the invite out to everybody to come, it not only do the drivers sign up and come and join in, but obviously, as we know, the communities come together and they want to support relative drivers, so it makes the whole package just a mix of communities, and it's great that we can all work together. And obviously yourself and I have come across to help out as well, and it's brilliant. It's just working together, and that's how it should be.
Yep, so we've got the 97 Honda NSX with Chris Hill behind the wheel, currently in 24th position. So still a lot of action to happen over the next 2 hours, 43 minutes and 20 seconds. We are currently on lap number 10. And I'm just seeing that Haley is currently going through turns 9 and 10. Walker trying to... Mitchell trying to close that gap, but it's still around 2.6 seconds and climbing. There's the number 125 Bentley, which has Aaron van Drunen behind the wheel. His teammate is Anthony Terhorst, who we've been speaking to in the lead up to this as well. So they're doing a good job in 13th position. They've got one of the they've got a I think that was a Mercedes just behind. Well, that is the Mercedes of Van Drooyen that we're on board with at the moment, and they've got the 131 Bentley. That is of Simon Pike, Joris Evelins, in the 131, whose team name will not be mentioned. For very, very good reason, because we're not. For those that have seen the entry list, Steve knows exactly what I'm talking about. We had a little chuckle about that last night on the test that we did before this.
Yeah, a little schoolboy chuckle, wasn't it, Alex? But just on Haley and Mitchell, I mean, Haley's times is still lapping that half a second a lap faster at the moment, and the gap's gone up to 3.2 seconds now. So I'm wondering if it was a case of, it's more or less team orders, and Haley had extra pace to Mitchell, and basically Mitchell just let him go. In reflection of that, maybe.
Yeah, one of the other big things about this event is that, Steve, on the pit stops, they have to change drivers, don't they?
Absolutely, yeah. They have to do 3 mandatory stops. I believe they can do those 3 mandatory stops at any point, but to count as a mandatory stop, they have to swap drivers. So if they come into the pits for any other reason and don't swap the driver, it won't count as one of them mandatory stops, and they'll find themselves having to make extra stops. So yeah, they have to swap drivers. They don't have to swap tyres. They don't have to put fuel in. That's totally optional, but they have to swap drivers to count as a mandatory pit stop.
Yeah, it was actually, when you were saying that Steve Haley was nearly over half a second up on Mitchell on lap times, or the last lap, and they completed lap 10, he was 3/1000 shy of 6/10. That's how quick that Ferrari is now becoming, because now that the tyres have rubbered in, things have gotten up to temperature. Haley has really found that pace, but hopefully let's hope for Regan Mitchell's sake that his teammate drifter Dave Hedges doesn't make that car go sideways at any point through want of trying.
Yeah, and another man, Daniel Ruiz. He's doing 1:44.5. So his previous lap was a 1:44.3. So he's actually lapping faster than Mitchell in second place as well. The unfortunate thing for him is he's got a Porsche in front of him, so he needs to get past that Porsche, and maybe he can make some ground up on second place. But yeah, he's certainly got the pace, and he's doing the lap times.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that with one of the equaling factors here in terms of the cars that we have on the circuit, the Porsche, because it has shorter gearing ratios, and also it's a bit more easier to handle on a technical track like this. That's why Radoslav Makush is still staying ahead of Ruiz at the moment. But the 3 main points where the opportunity to use that sheer grunt of that 6.2 litre naturally aspirated V8 is coming out of turns 14 and down into 1, then 3 to 4, and then 11 to 12, if you can get the run of momentum right through the corners. And sometimes that can be a bit of a tall order, especially when the tyres start going away.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. You've got a couple of the heavier braking zones into T1, and then obviously T6, T7, which is the chicane. The rest of it's a pretty flowing track, and very much so. Coming out of T7 into T8, T9, and T10, that's very much each corner complements the next. And if you don't get the first bit right, you're not going to get any of the others, and you're not going to maximise that speed. And obviously, also coming out of turn 1, it's so important to get the drive down, and that's easier to say than it is to do sometimes, because if you just hold slightly too tight a line and you create that bit more resistance, then you can soon get the back ends of some of these cars stepping out and you lose traction, and then somebody can pass you into T2. But yeah, it's a fast flowing track, it's a driver's track, it's a great track. I'll be honest, it never used to be one of my favourites, but the more time I put into it, the more rewarding it is, and I actually like it now as a track. I think it's a great track and it's very, very rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, I recently been doing a bit of work with World Pro Racing as well, and we did the 90 minutes of Hungaroring, funnily enough, this time last week. So that was plenty of good practice for this weekend, wasn't it? But yeah, I mean, it's a track that I've really come to love. In 2006, it was the site of Jenson Button's first ever Formula One victory, and also where he secured, I think it was his 200th race as well, I think, for when he was in with McLaren, I think, and I think he won the race as well. So this has got a lot of great people associated with this track. Norby Michaelis as well, from himself a Hungarian driver. He was the king of WTCR last season, having been dethroned by Jan Elache, the nephew of Ivan Muller, just a few weeks ago at Motorland Aragon. As we've got quite a few drivers. There's the Team Polizei Ferrari, very much like the old Gumball rally car that Alex Roy used to race back in the day when it was a BMW M5. So you can see that all the stupid trivial bits of information from me will be coming out over the next 2.5 hours or so.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. That's why you're so great at commentating, because you can just pluck that out from the memory banks, and they're probably dark places that you've not been for a long time. But anyway, just onto
you digress.
onto the times, and the times at the front at the moment are really going up and down. Haley's just done a 45 more or less flat. Mitchell did a 45.2, but on the last lap, Haley's was his best lap of the session with a 44.1, and Regan's was a 44.2. So Regan Mitchell seemed to have found the pace again, but again, they've gone on to the next lap and they're almost a second off where they were. So it's really up and down at the moment, whether that's just momentary lapses in concentration that's affecting them, or whether there's something that we can't maybe tell here in the commentary box, condition of tyres or something like that. But I would have thought it's far too early for any sort of tyre degradation to be affecting the grip and whatnot at this moment.
No, I mean, especially with the fact that we're only, close to 25 minutes completed. I've just been keeping an eye a little bit further down the order. Miettinen in a 313 pair of Pink Pigs Porsche has just put in a 144.8. So it seems like the Ferraris and the Porsches, and there is Henri Miettinen in the 313, currently running in 11th position ahead of the 131 Bentley, and then has got Simon Pike behind the wheel. Good spot by Kieran Vidago. This is a true driver's track. Well put there. We've also had Anthony Terhos to go, "Hi, Mum and Dad." Well, that's a bit worrying. You can see about these. That's the thing with us, with us in the sim racing communities. Now that's a bit of a run wide there from a back marker. So that would have been a Mercedes of some description, but very, very nicely put, and deciding to actually go wide before the corner to let, and that's one of the rules of this with regards to back markers, and now it's really going to start getting into that first phase of where the back markers really are going to play a part in this race, Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. The back markers will come into play, but if they're all like that one, he really threw it wide because he saw the big gaggle of cars coming and just let them all through, and I don't think he caused anybody an issue there other than himself. But that's great respect from him and good driving, to be fair to him, just to let everybody through. But yeah, the back markers can make or break a lap, certainly, and in the worst case scenario they can make or break a race. We have seen some incidents in other races where a back marker's totally wrecked people's races when contact's made and things like that. But generally, the communities are very, very fair with each other, and if someone's caught you up and you're getting your blue flags, generally you'll just lift off on one of the straights and let them through, or you'll do like that guy did when it's safe to do so and pull out of the way. So yeah, it shouldn't be too bad. We've got 27 cars on the grid at the moment, 29 sorry, so 29 cars. It's a biggish grid, but it's not the biggest we've seen on ACC, and it's certainly a reasonably length track to cope with that many cars.
Yeah, just want to go back to the battle between the 131 Bentley of Pike and Van Drunen in the 125 Mercedes. That's getting a bit up close and personal. I did see the 125 actually close up on the 131. You can just see now the Mercedes has got the real good run. And one of the big things is it's one of the very last GT3 cars that had a naturally aspirated engine, and that is what Van Drunen is using to great effect, trying to go around the outside of Pike. And then trying to cut through and get the switchback. Now this is coming through turns 13 and then now into 14. And if Van Drunen gets a good run coming out of the final corner, looks as if there was a little bit of a momentum loss there for the 125 Mercedes. But Simon Pike in the 131 really doing a good job keeping the defences up in front of Falterbach's finest.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I said a little bit earlier when I was giving you my thoughts on the track. He got the drive out of that corner, turn 14 really, really well, and managed to get down that start-finish straight and just create enough of a gap to protect himself from the slipstream. But he needs to do that for another 2 hours and 32 minutes. So he's got a big job on his hands.
Yeah, but that depends on how difficult the rain is going to be in 30 minutes' time. Look, the weather is changing, so we could have. I think one of the most interesting races that myself and Steve have commentated on was the first ever round of the ACC GT3 Driver Swap Series that we have, which is running every other Sunday until the 20th of December. The first round at Suzuka was an absolute washout for the first hour and a half. And now we're getting the reverse here at the Hungaroring. You couldn't have planned that any better, really, could you, Steve?
No, I mean, I wish we'd planned it. It's brilliant. It's fantastic though, because obviously the rain's going to come. We're going from a pretty much optimum grip level track with decent temperatures, as we've just seen the Bentley running ever so slightly wide there. That's going to cost him a bit of time indeed. The Mercedes has closed that gap up a little bit. He's just showing his nose, maybe going to try and outbrake him into turn 12, but he's too far back for that. He's just going to keep the pressure on, maybe now follow as close as he can through these last couple of corners, and again look for that slipstream and maybe an outbrake into turn 1, but we'll see. But yeah, the weather, I mean, it's going from pretty much perfect conditions, or as perfect as you can get in November, to potentially we're going to start seeing some rain, and then it'll be a case of who cracks first and goes for the wets. That will be interesting, and it will again, that could make or break some people's races.
Yeah, it'll probably spice things up as well, and especially the handling characteristics. You know, if the drivers were aware that possibly there was a chance of rain, they might have gone with a sort of like an intermediate setup. So it looks like Lenson in the 301 has just pitted from an 11th position, and that is the 301 Bentley. One fast, one furious.
As he said, there he is.
Yeah, shout out to Princess Platinum on YouTube for pointing that out, along with Steve. Dave Hedges is using the SimSport Racing YouTube account again. That's the usual on our GT4 and GT3 exploits at SimSport Racing, which has an ever-expanding community, and it's a real pleasure to be part of the Sim Racing Hub International TV broadcast this time around for both myself and Steve, as Haley's got a real big gap over Mitchell. That's now, 4.2 seconds?
Yeah, I mean, it's only just visual for Mitchell now. He's just keeping. He'll get a glimpse of the back end of Steve Haley through a few of the corners, but for large parts of this track now, Haley's pretty much out of sight. But interestingly, the top 4 on the last lap were all within a tenth of each other, roughly on the lap times. So the pace is sort of evened out. They're all sort of finding a little bit of a gap, and just sort of, as I said earlier, they're settling into a rhythm now, and they're just putting the lap times in, and they're just keeping their heads down and trying to keep it clean.
So we've just gone through the first half hour. That's gone pretty quickly, I must be completely honest. It's Steve Haley in the number 24 SimSport Racing Ferrari that leads after 17 laps completed, just under 4 seconds ahead of Regan Mitchell. Then we've got Radoslav Markuch in the 137 Porsche with Daniel Ruiz closing down in the 707 Audi. Then it's Simon Zimmerman in the 166 Audi that is in 5th place ahead of Marcel Wies, who looks to have dropped down a position. Steve Hinden in the number 80 Esports Design Audi, currently rounding out the top 7 ahead of Sam Spenkelink. And then we have the number 33 Lexus, and that is of Lork driving with that looks to be Tim Kroll behind the wheel. Then we've got Henri Mettinen in the pair of Pink Pigs Porsche, the 313 running at the top 10. Pike in the 131 in 11th ahead of Van Drooyen. Then we've got the number 12 Sim Racing Holland of Bart Sverink in the number 12 in 12th position. Funnily enough, make that 13th position. And then just behind looks to be one of the Audis. That is the number, I think, that is the 84 Audi, which currently...
Is that Huntman driving that car?
Yeah, Huntman. And then it's the Kornceptor in the number 77 Mercedes running at the top 15. But the gaps still are closing quite, you see Svidink and Huntman, they're about 0.6 of a second adrift, and it's completely different machinery. It's a bit like the old DTM Dream Race back in 2019, where Lexus went against Audi at Fuji Speedway in Class 1 machinery, with DTM now switching to GT3 regulations for 2021. Some nice designs there, especially from the Mode 11 Racing Lexus. That's a beauty. It's very reminiscent of the old camouflage livery that you see on road cars these days.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm just sort of scrolling through the times as I'm looking for the battles on the broadcasting app, and it's nice to see that even though we're over 30 minutes in, I've got a choice of several battles that are all within half a second of each other. So the guys, while I said earlier they're sort of spreading out and settling into a rhythm, there's still some very close battles, within half a second. Half a second is enough to relax at some point and just, hold your lines, drive your lines, and run your own race. But, certainly someone's there ready, as we can see on screen now. If they need to pounce or they get an opportunity to pounce, Vale will pounce on Mellis in front if he gets a chance.
Yeah, very, very true indeed. As the McLaren, that is Vale in the 967. That's the Dynamic Racing Zander Vale that goes wide going into turn 1, and that allows Van Mellis in the number 11 Lexus that's Baz Van Mellis, who's got Dennis Bergman as his teammate. There's Tim Kroll in the number 33 driving Lexus, currently in P9 behind the number 54 BMW of Sam Spankelink. Sam, who we've met through our sim sport racing community, was the first one in our season 1 of GT4 to decide to go for the Alpine A110 GT4, and actually did a handsome job with it.
Yeah, obviously a driver that likes a challenge. That's all I can say about that, really, because as you say, he was the first one to go for that car, and he did a fantastic job in it. He really found some pace with it, and he's again. He got the good results through quite a lot of consistent drives. So that's what it's all about. You need to be consistent in these cars, and just forget those results. In the championships, you need to hammer out several results. In a race like this, where it's a one-off, we call it an endurance race, but technically this is a sprint race. It's glory or nothing today, isn't it? That's it. It's all about today.
Yeah, it's all about who's going to really put the pedal to the metal and throw caution to the wind at the same time to see how they get on. As Schlapek Bartkus trying to go around the outside of Schlapek there, and Svirlink in the number 12 Lexus has pitted from 18th position. And then we've got that looks to be the Team Pollock sidecar just behind in the 144, and that is the case. So Svidink drops out of the top 20 as Jurjen van Dijk takes 20th position. So this is now the battle for 18th place. It's going to be rather interesting how some drivers are going to respond. But that cloud cover is going to turn to rainfall within the next half an hour, Steve, and that is just going to be the one that puts the cat amongst the proverbial pigeons, especially if they haven't got their setup right. Yeah,
I mean, the guys, I think they're all experienced enough that they will have done some wet weather testing. I maybe get told otherwise afterwards, but I think they'll have done some wet weather testing, because obviously when you start changing to wet tyres, you've got to really look at the temperatures, you've got to get the tyre pressures right. It's a whole different game, as it were. So yeah, hopefully they've done the homework, and the transition shouldn't be too bad. It's risky. It's a strategy call. It's you've got to watch those lap times, and there is a crossover point from your dry tyre lap times to when it's really you need to be on the wets, and depending how heavy that rain comes. It'll obviously affect how quick that crossover point comes. Some of the more nervous drivers may swap onto the wets a bit earlier, but that will, in the same respect, that will cost them lap time just as much as it would if they stayed out too long. So it's a strategy call when it comes.
Well, Kieran Vidago, obviously you joined us after we'd gone through some of the regulations. There are 3 mandatory pit stops. There is also open strategy around that, when they decide to take fuel on board, whether they take tyres on board. But when they do come in for a pit stop, they do have to mandatorily switch drivers. So there is a maximum stint time of 70 minutes per driver. So Steve Hindon. Now up into, well, that's he's just got past. No, he's ahead of. Now that's Marcel Weiss. So that is very, very interesting. Looks like Hindon's really got the bit between the teeth, and he's now closing on Marcel Weiss in the Audi. Well, he's in the Audi. Weiss is in the Bentley, as they're now going to come across the start-finish line. Now on lap number 22 with the 4.6 second advantage for Steve Haley in the number 24 SimSport Racing Ferrari. And that rain is looking to come now in about 15 minutes time. So with just over 2 hours remaining, Steve, the race could be turned upside down on its head.
Yeah, absolutely, and let's not forget, obviously the rain, we can only see up to half an hour in front. The rain is going to come. We've got 2 hours 20 minutes. The rain could go before the end of the race as well, so that would have another strategy call for the guys to make. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Let's get the rain here when it does come, and it's not going to be. It doesn't look like it's going to be too heavy to start with, but let's see what happens, and the guys will deal with it how they see fit. But just to mention again, Haley and Mitchell have found the pace again up at the front because they're both back into the sort of mid to late 44. Haley with a 44.5 and Mitchell with a 44.7, and everybody else around them doing 45 mids, so they're literally almost a second quicker than anybody else behind them at the moment. So really consolidating that lead and really doing what they need to do, not racing each other, just putting lap times in and looking to keep extending that gap out.
Well, it looks like the number 12 Lexus from Sim Racing Holland is all the way down in 28th position and is now a lap down off the lead as the 587 Mercedes of MFR Team Edison also down into there. So it looks like they've had a driver change at the Sim Racing Holland crew. So Frans van der Linden now looks to be behind the wheel, currently rounding as Van Mellis in the number 11 now drops to 27th. So whether
he's in the pits as well,
yeah, I was just going to say he's in the pits as well. Whether he's going to hand over to Dennis Werkman is another idea on that one. You then got Ivo Huisius just on the screen there in the number 1 Mercedes. Jordi Barker in the number 98 Pulse Motorsport entry, currently rounding out the top 15 and has got Klaus Vester closing in. And then you've also got the number 66. Oh, run wide there from Barker and then some coming out of turn 1. That is going to allow the number 90 Ferrari to go towards the outside of turn 2. I don't know how he's got that move, but Vester is pulling off a blinder at the minute, and he's going to get the run into the inside corner for turn 3. Well, hats off to the number 90 Ferrari of Rapid Lawnmowers, Klaus Vester, for pulling off a blinder with just under 40 minutes completed.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic driving there, side by side. Total respect given to each other, and just enabled the move to be done clean. But like you say, a very, very good move and some fantastic driving there from both drivers. But what that has done is obviously Parker there is looking a little bit interested in trying to move forward as well, and certainly putting the guys under pressure in front.
Yeah, Steve Hindon has pitted the number 80 Audi. I've just seen. So they run outside of the top 20, and that rain I think is going to be coming a bit sooner because Aaron Walker on our YouTube chat about a couple of minutes ago said rain in 10. So that rain is going to come just before, what is it, with about 2 hours and 10 minutes still to go. I think it's going to come with about 2 hours 15.
Yeah,
and that's going to really switch things up. I mean, the wind is bringing the cloud cover across the track, which will bring in the rain. So the track will go from optimum to more than just a slippery surface when you go to Marshall flags here in the UK.
Yeah, what some of the guys that haven't done their first pit stop yet will be hoping for is that the rain maybe comes sooner rather than later, so that they can maybe combine that first pit stop. They've run long, maybe they've got enough fuel just to keep going that bit longer and extend the first stint until the rain comes, until that crossover point comes, and they don't have to waste any. Well, they don't have to make an extra pit stop, shall we say? Because some of these guys that have pitted early, in potentially 10, 15 minutes, they may have to pit again, and I can't see them swapping drivers, because obviously we've got the stint time to worry about. They were only allowed to drive a set amount of time.
Yeah, the 125 Mercedes now in the pits, the Dakar Racing A team of Aaron van Drunen, with Anthony Terhorst now going to be taking the wheel, as Tim Krol coming under pressure from Henri Mietinen in the pair of Pink Pigs 313 Porsche, and they've got Sem Spankelink in the number 54 BMW just ahead from Dark Sky Racing. And there are dark skies ahead. That is a bit foreboding. I think it's not commentator's curse. I think it's team name curse this time around. But this battle between this trio is really, really getting very, very interesting indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a certain amount of pressure being applied by that Porsche in the background, and he's looking to make a move. And the Porsche, we know, can get out of the corners reasonably well, but it just lacks a little bit of top speed sometimes down the straights. And you can see there he's closing ever so slightly in the slipstream, but there's no massive gains to be had. So even though he's gone defensive, I don't think he really needed to there. He'd got the job done. He was covered and he had a gap. Although the Porsche's launched out that corner in contact indeed, and unfortunately he spun him right around. And is the Porsche going to wait for him? I think not. He's setting off and on his merry way.
And Kroll, I think, will be parking that Lexus momentarily for damage. Corn Scepter in the number 77 has... Yeah, no, there you go.
He's letting back.
Yeah, and that's that's changing everything, because there is now a Bentley. That's Pike, I think, that's just started to get involved. Oh, that's a bit cheeky from Mietinen there, giving him a little tap to say, yeah, I'm there, and then going through the chicane. That's not really going to... But Mietinen has to slot back into position, and then they've got the number 84 Audi just behind, which is Michael Hudman, and they've done a really good job so far. They qualified in P23, and that is 12 positions gained in just under 45 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some guys. I mean, we're seeing the driver swaps coming in now, so we don't know if the drivers that took to the wheel in the first stint were necessarily the fastest. We've seen the Bentley running a bit wide there, and the Porsche took full advantage of that. Really nice opportunistic move there, and up the inside and gained the position. And he's lost 2 positions there. Yeah,
so we're going to fast approach the conclusion of lap number 26. And the gap between Stephen Haley and Regan Mitchell now is around about quite a lot more than 5.6 seconds, as Haley Mitchell has been sort of firing back his own warning shots across the bow, so to speak, with a 1:44.9. Haley did a 1:45.3. There is Regan Mitchell. They're going past one of the backmarker McLarens. A bit further down the order, but Pike and Barker in the 131 and the 98 have now pitted with just 45 minutes on the clock completed. So 2 hours, 15 minutes and 9 seconds still to go. 26 laps about to be completed by the number 24 of SimSport Racing's Stephen Haley, with a considerable gap between himself and Regan Mitchell in the sister SimSport Racing car in the number 52. Then it is Marcouche rounding out the top 3 positions at the minute. Barkas in the 747 trying to close up on the 737 Aston of Schlapek, and that is 4th position. And it looks like they've got the 777 Ferrari just behind.
Yeah, these guys have never really been far away from each other, have they, for the last sort of probably 15-20 minutes or so. They just seem to be battling pretty closely all the way through. The gap seems to expand a few tenths, but then it closes back up again. So, good battling from these guys so far.
Yep, so it is about just waiting and anticipating when that rain is going to come, as Call now again gets more pressure from Mittanen. And there is Hudman in the number 84 Audi, just casually watching how things go. Oh, nice move there from Mittanen through turn 13. Cole runs a little bit wide, but Mittanen absolutely measured that one. That was nice and clean and precise there.
Yeah, he got perfect drive out of that corner, didn't he? I mean, he really stuffed it up the inside, turned it tight, and really just got the traction to come out of that corner. And he's certainly got a big enough gap, I believe, now down the straight as well. He's avoiding the slipstream, and he's going to be able to take his normal line into the braking zone as we see now. So yeah, a really good move from him, and he's made that position stick.
Well, Parker in the 66 Bentley has now pulled it into the pits from 12th position. Yeah, but Cole, if he was about another car length and a half a bit further forward towards Mittanen, he could have actually gone up the inside through turn 1. But Hutman in the 84 is absolutely closing on that Lexus. And Van Dijk has now pitted from 15th in the 144 Ferrari. And that's Team Polizei. That's a great bit of work from them, up 11 positions. Up to 15th before putting in their first mandatory pit stop, as there's Anthony Terhorst in the 125 Dakar Racing entry, currently running P21. Evan Tafas from TH Racing Crew.
It's raining, Alex.
20th place. Oh, the heavens have opened. And now this is where things are going to get a little bit more tricky, because those drivers that have just gone past the pit lane we'll have to think, right, I'm on slicks, it's going to get wetter and wetter, and you can see it's quickly changed within literally, 60 seconds. It's gone from optimum to green. Yellow flags are out as well, I'm not at all surprised. So some of the drivers really being tested both physically and mentally here.
Let's watch those lap times, Alex. I mean, they were all 45s pretty much from the top four, on the first lap, on the last lap. But we're seeing already some of them coming round, and they're now in the 46s, 47s, and 48s even as you go further down the field. So it's already affecting the lap times massively, and we can just see some of the drivers now having to adapt to the green conditions, as it were, for the track condition, where they're going to be pushing a bit too deep in the braking zones, maybe sliding a little bit, losing traction coming out. They'll, as we see,
Oh, he catches that one though. Nice save by Evan Natafas. That nearly ended up in the barriers there. Oh my goodness me.
That was a great save from a commentator's curse there, I believe, wasn't it? I said it and he did it. It was a great save. But that is what they're up against now. The track has gone from, as I said earlier, it's gone from pretty damn near perfect, optimum to green.
It's not green. It's greasy now. It's greasy now, according to the track conditions. Track temperature dropping now by a degree. But I think Evan Natafas with the save of the afternoon so far in the 79 McLaren. He lost only one position. De Keizer in the 777 has now pitted. And that's the Pulse Motorsport. So Patrick Vanst will now be taking over that car. Just going to keep an eye on... Mitchell's done a 151.8. Haley did a 149.9. I think we're going to be, with the way things are going, with the way that rain is hitting, I will not be at all surprised if we end up closer and closer to the 2-minute bracket per lap.
Absolutely, the times are going up, and we're going to hit that crossover point very, very soon, where they really need to come in and put the wets on. Because obviously, as you've said, the track temp's going down, so they'll be losing temperature in the tyres, which will mean they're losing pressures, and obviously they're losing a lot of grip through the track conditions, let alone losing tyre pressure as well. So they're going to have to be coming in, as we're seeing more and more cars, as you can tell there. The Bentley in the background really went deep into turn 2 and just ran very, very wide, costing himself some time. They're going to have to start avoiding the curbs very soon as well, if they aren't already, because that's going to throw something else into the mix when they lose traction. We see the Porsche there literally fishtailing, came back, made contact with the Mercedes. Yes,
Ruiz nearly went barrel rolling sideways through the track conditions into the side of Makush there. Radoslav Makush was a very, very lucky guy, but you can see there's that dark black Porsche has got a little bit of primer showing on the left, on the right door, thanks courtesy of Ruiz's sideways moment. Mittanen in the pits, Marcel Wies in the pits. One of the Lexuses running slowly. The times are creeping up, Steve. I've seen that the number, what was it? The number 90 of Klaus Verster currently running in the 155s. I've seen times as high. Well, Marcel Weiss on his last lap was a 158.5. So that's how quickly the track has degraded to the point of it's not just gone green, it's gone proper greasy, and the drivers are now having to fight about it. But then the thing is that with Haley and Mitchell, obviously we do know that the Brits do like their wet weather racing conditions, but it's a case of when will Haley and Mitchell decide that it's far. I mean, their lap times 154.2 for Haley, 155.5 for Mitchell. And you could just see how much Steve Haley is now tippy-toeing around that circuit, and that was coming through what, turn 2?
Yeah, absolutely, and he will. They're just feeling the grip levels, because at the moment they can't get into a groove now because the track is getting wetter and wetter and slippier and slippier. So they're literally every lap is different to the last lap, and they're literally finding the grip, feeling their way around. And it's whichever drivers can do that the best that are going to get those lap times in. And at the moment, Haley's last lap, like you said, was a 54, Mitchell's 55, and then we're looking at third and fourth place both doing 2:01s. The other two guys that are still in the 50s, fifth and sixth place, with 156.2 for Spenkelik and Zimmerman, was that, I think. So they're still doing in the mid 50s. So there are still some boys out there doing similar lap times to those two out front, but the majority of the field now is dropping down with some of the lap times, and we are seeing some, like say, in the 2 minutes plus barrier. So I expect to see them all going to wets very, very soon.
Yeah, very, very true indeed. And it's going to be one of those things that the drivers are really going to have to. They're going to earn a good respite and a good dinner this evening. So Koller's pitted, Hutman, Vester, Budkus, they've all pitted. So quite a few other drivers. Markush is still showing in the 137, but I think that should change because that will be Wojciech Morin that will be behind the wheel of that 137. That's what should be happening. Simon Zimmerman not yet pitted in the 166. Well, Regan Mitchell has pitted. Mitchell has pitted from second. He dropped all the way down to about 15.8 seconds behind Steve Haley. So Zimmerman coming in the pits. They're all coming in. This is where pandemonium will reign supreme, and they've got to make sure they hit that 50 kph speed limit and not go even a decimal point over, Steve, because then that is an instant stop go 30, and we've had one as a result. The 84 has got a stop go 30 right now.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's effectively another pit stop, isn't it? So that really does add time, and it's really not what you want to see. Obviously, we've got 2 hours left. There's plenty of time to make up positions, but that's not going to do you any favours whatsoever, and you don't need me to tell you that. It's going to really put a downer on your race. But I'm just looking at John Clements at the moment, and it's going to be interesting because they pitted earlier. They pitted quite early to swap from Hinden to Clements, and it's going to be interesting to see how they manage now and what they do, and indeed do they try and stay out a bit longer. I mean, maybe you can tell me this one, Aaron. Clements' last lap time was a 156.1, so he's still doing reasonable lap times out there on what I suspect are the slicks, but he's going to have to do that extra pit stop soon. So is he going to stay out as long as possible and then hand the car back to Hinden to make it one of the mandatory stops, or is he just going to have to go bite the bullet and go in and get some wet tyres on?
Yeah, well, Steve Haley's still braving it. He's doing 157.4s at the minute, so
that's looking like somebody else with a stop go as well.
That's the 80. That is the 84, and that's the 90 Ferrari. So that's the rapid lawnmowers. So Klaus Vester, if he was caught speeding in the pits, oh dearie me. Haley now pits on lap number 31 actually. So there comes Stephen Haley. He's going to hand over to Aaron Walker, who will now jump behind the wheel of the number 24, Regan Mitchell. It should be showing, if Regan Mitchell has pitted, then it should be showing that Dave Hedges should be behind the wheel. I don't know whether that might be an issue with ACC. That does sometimes temporarily happen.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a little while to update, but yeah, you're quite right. If that's a mandatory pit stop, then it would be Dave Hedges. But if they haven't swapped drivers, then it won't count as a mandatory stop. But interesting now to see what sort of lap times Mitchell can put in, or Hedges, whoever's behind that wheel, within the first couple of laps. Get some heat into it, get some feel out there for the conditions, and then when they start pushing, see what times they can get with them.
Track has now been, the track description, for those watching on the YouTube stream, thank you for joining us. The track is now declared damp. I'm waiting for it to go fully wet. Regan Mitchell now is in the pits. So, well, whether it is Dave Hedges, I'm not too sure, but I'm sure we'll find out. So, looks like Haley will have handed over to Aaron Walker. But the thing is that if they may have decided not to do that as their mandatory pit stop, it might have been a case that Regan has possibly changed to wet tyres, put on some fuel, and Dave's probably said, look, he might have just said to Dave Hedges, I'm going to just check the conditions and just give you an idea of what's going on. And we're now into the 2 minutes. We're getting them now. Haley's in, the number 24 car is in the 2-minute 2s. So the times are going up. We've got Natafas has got a drive-through as well. So...
yeah, I'm guessing that'd be for maybe track limits, that one, Alex. But yeah, I mean, it's like you say, it's the ACC just updates slowly. It's just updated for Haley and Walker to say that Walker is in the car now, but it's taken about half a lap for that to happen. So sometimes it is a little bit confusing because they have to go through a certain sector on the track for it to update. But yeah, we've got Aaron Walker in now, so it'll be interesting to see. What sort of times he does put in the wet tyres. The track conditions will get wetter. It's forecast just to keep raining, as you can see at the top right of the screen there. So, we're going to start getting a bit of spray, as you can see, coming off the back of the cars as well, which once they start getting into traffic is going to start affecting, visibility into braking zones and things like that. And that also throws up an extra obstacle when lapping back markers as well.
Yeah, so looks like Denise Pope is going to have to serve the drive-through, unfortunately. She's a more recent addition to the SimSport racing community herself, and she's had some peaks and some troughs, obviously some trials and tribulations. But good to see her competing in this as well in the number 79 McLaren. They're currently running P23 at the minute, as the number 1 Mercedes. The Grun Mercedes with that is Jan Paul Eichenelboom. That's my best attempt at that so far. That's my first attempt at that so far, and I'm just going to call him Jan Paul. That's going to be easier for me, I think.
I'm going to go with whatever you say, Alex, because you are the master of pronunciation. So the voice of SimSport and pronunciation, that is you, mate.
Well, even I don't get it right, but Javier Berrio currently rounding out the top 4, 10.6 seconds off of the number 969 Artwork Bentley of Dave Jr., who's currently running P3. So I'm just keeping an eye. The 52 that's got Dave Hedges now behind the wheel in 9th position as the number 90 comes through the pits, and that is René van Dijkhuizen, I think is how you say it. I'm not too sure. René, if you want to correct me on that when you finished your stint, that'd be greatly appreciated. So we're now on to lap number 33. We're about to come to the completion of the first third of this race, and there is Dave Hedges and the number 52 SimSport Racing Ferrari. And there is Aaron Walker asking that is the number 80 Esport Designs Audi that's in front and centre. They are allowed to flash their lights if the driver in front is going to be a lap vehicle. And at the moment, Steve, I've just seen that everyone at the moment, and that is John Clements behind the wheel of that car, that is nearly half the field lapped within the first hour.
That's what I was just going to say that myself. That's Clements in 16th place, just been lapped by the leader, Aaron Walker. And Aaron Walker's lap was a 1:56.5. So pretty much they pitted right on the crossover point, didn't they? Because they were just doing 56s. And they've come back out now on wets and they're doing 56s again. So that's perfect strategy from those guys, and hopefully Aaron can keep his head down and keep putting those times in. and just use that lead to his advantage and keep the cushion as wide as possible.
Well, actually, looks like we've got an interviewee coming in. So let's see if I can bring this man in. We've got SimSport Racing number 24's Stephen Haley. I'm going to now pull him into our shed here, our broadcast shed here at Sim Racing Hub International. Let's just see if I can... don't know if I can do that. I'm just trying to do that at the moment. But yeah, I mean, it's been rather interesting so far. We've got yellow flags out at the minute. So yeah, I'm having difficulties trying to get Steve in at the minute. So, but we're on board with Aaron Walker at the moment in his teammate. Oh, sideways for Walker, catches that absolutely perfectly. So, oh my goodness me! Oh, just when I was talking about his teammate, Walker goes sideways. But what a save though! What a save!
Yeah, absolutely. It's these conditions. He's just running a little bit deep there, but pulling it back for the apex nicely, and just got to keep it smooth. And that's what literally everybody on the track's now got to do. They've got to drive as smooth as possible, keep things just under control, and not panic because panic. Bit too much curb. See the Porsche just trying to step out a little bit there. It's absolutely treacherous. But the last thing these guys want to do now is spin, because even if they get away with he spun the Porsche there, just absolutely just caught it. I'm going to stop talking about spins because every time I do, somebody's having an issue and they're spinning out, but they don't want to pick up damage. They don't really want to spin. It's a long race and they just want to keep these lap times consistent.
Yeah, that's Wojciech Moron in the 137 Porsche, and they started in 5th position as we are into the second hour of this 3-hour SRHI, 3 hours of the Hungaroring with myself, Alex Goldschmidt, and Steve Proudley on commentary so far, as Berio now in the pits in the 707 Mercedes. From 5th position, as it looks like the number 54 of Nard Cox 54 of Dark Sky Racing's Nard Cox now up into 4th place. And at the moment, the number 969 entry, that is the Bentley of Artworks with Dave Jr. behind the wheel, as there's Javier Berio in the pits. And we'll drop down the order. Niall Dodds just behind the Dark Sky Racing BMW, so it is getting rather interesting indeed on how we can on how this race is unfolding. And the thing is that Niall Dodds needs to just keep his eyes on what's going on, because he's a lap driver and he's going through this chicane. I can't believe he's just done, and he's had a track cut. He's had a track cut in the 66 Bentley. That will be a black mark against the Bentley in terms of the track side of things, so the drivers will start getting we have seen it where drivers have started to get a little bit let's just say messy with regards to how they're racing, but obviously with the track conditions, that, Steve, is going to be a real difficult way of trying to get the optimum racing line, because when it's a wet track, you've got to try and use every single opportunity you can to keep the grip going through and coming out of the corners and putting the power down.
Absolutely, yeah. You've got to be smooth, you've got to be tidy, and it matters the most when it's the hardest to do that. As we've just seen, that's very, very close. As back markers, I believe, are getting lapped there as well, but they're all still trying to turn across for that apex. But so far, so good, no contact. But yeah, very, very close at the moment. But yeah, they've got to be smooth, they've got to be precise, they've got to put the car where they need it, and it's very, very difficult in these conditions. And as I said earlier, they're still changing, it's still getting wetter. It's not full wet yet, it's not, we haven't got all the spray coming off the cars yet, but it's definitely a long way from where it was in that first stint. Just to update everybody, I did message Steve Haley because unfortunately we were unable to move him to the interview booth, but he said that they did indeed hang on for that wet weather to come before they did their swap, so they did stretch their stint out a bit longer, having watched the forecast. Really happy with the first stint, very happy with the car. No real concerns at all from the messages that he sent me. So Aaron just needs to be out there, and as we say, just needs to be consistent and precise with where he puts the car, and just keep it going really, and see what happens with the weather. But just drive it as it is. It is what it is, and you've just got to take the conditions like everybody else. And they're both doing a great job so far.
Well, as they say, suck it up and see what happens, because Walker now has a lead over Junior in the 969 Bentley. It's nearly 21 seconds at the moment, and they're running. Walker's running the 155 ones, but Junior's just responding with a 154.7. So that Bentley, okay, we have a wonderful nickname for this car when it's wet, the Boatley, and that is very appropriate right now, because when Dave Junior is running, well, he's just done a 156.3, but the previous lap he was effectively 0.3 quicker than Aaron Walker. So the track, as you say, the rain is still intense. It's hard. It's not giving up in terms of hitting the track. So this is where it's really going to change everything in terms of it.
Yeah, absolutely, and like you say, you know, the Bentley does seem to go well in the wet weather. We've seen other drivers, you know, make up massive time deficits in the wet once the Bentley comes alive. We know from what other drivers have told us, and from driving it myself a little bit, it's not a fantastic car for qualifying. It's not a hot lap car, so to speak. As somebody off there, whether they've just got out of the way or whether that's
a Bentley. That was a Bentley on the left-hand side. So I'm wondering. There's a couple of Bentleys. You've got the 131, you've got the 301, and the pair of them are running 14th. So was it the 301? I'm wondering if we can catch a side of either one of them, because Lenson in the 301 currently running 11th place. So it might have been. It looked like it was a very light blue colour on the front of the Bentley that we saw going a little bit wide, so I would imagine that would have been Lenson that would have been off the track there.
Yeah, absolutely. But as I was saying, you know, the Bentley.
Right. When is the Bentley getting wet? Says Yelly Bossing on YouTube. Very much the case that things will get wetter and wetter. Whether we're going to need a sort of like maybe an engine put on the back of that thing is anyone's guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at the Porsche. I mean, the Porsches don't like the wet weather. I mean, anybody driving any car will say their car like the wet weather, I think. But again, the Porsche isn't the grippiest thing in the wet. But it just depends what setups these guys have gone for. You know, as we said at the beginning, it was a long race. We knew there was a chance of rain. It started off optimum. So do you just go out there with the dry setup, or do you slightly compromise it? And by that, I mean usually in the wet, you would sort of raise the ride height is one of the first things you would do. A bit more downforce depending on the car and depending on what, you know, your shockers are, dampers, things like that. So, you know, be interesting. Some of the boys might have gone out on an absolute dry setup and they will pay the price if it gets really wet, but some of the guys may have started on a compromised setup, not quite sure.
Yeah, they could have raised, you know, they could have probably done an intermediate ride height change, maybe put it up maybe by a certain amount of millimetres, but then probably have gone with a higher downforce setup to compensate for any wet weather incoming, because that then will help them through the corners. Okay, it won't give them the optimum when it comes to straight line speed, but then you've got the nice balance between the two.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back to that battle at the front, Aaron Walker has responded with a 54.5 on his lap, well, a 54.6 if we round it up the 6,000ths, to Junior's, it was a 54.8, so he was about 0.2 faster. Not a lot, but it was a response to Junior's previous lap, which was quicker than Walker's. So that gap is probably staying pretty stagnant at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much the case, as the rain still intensely hitting the track here at the Hungaroring, the Sim Racing Hub International 3 hours of the Hungaroring. Thank you very much to everyone tuning in. We've got 1 hour and 50 minutes and 17 seconds still to go on the clock, as there's Simon Zimmerman in the 166 Audi, currently running in P13. Looks like I just saw one of the Aston Martins come out of the pit lane, and up until 11th position at the moment, Steve, has been lapped by the leader.
Yeah, I mean, the first stint in the dry was really impressive from those two Ferraris, the SimSport boys. They really managed to put some decent laps in, and at some points were lapping nearly a second faster than the other guys. I mean, that's not just down to the driver's pace, although it's good. The guys behind, as we saw in that first stint, were battling all the way through, and the conditions that at the moment, the rain has just spread people out a little bit, and they're more conscious about keeping it on the black stuff and off that green stuff than they are about racing too hard with anybody, because it is, we've got 1 hour and 49 minutes left, so there's over half this race left to go yet, so everything can change. There's nobody's out of the question for certainly top 10 finish, and there's a lot of people still maybe be gunning for a podium finish at this moment in time. Everything can change.
Yeah, so just being asked a question by Mark Neutlings, one of our fellow SSR community members. Where's Dave Hedges? He's currently P7 at the moment, Mark. And there you go. As if by magic, currently on your screens at the minute, the 52 Ferrari is currently in 7th place and is a little bit of a distance behind the number 33 Lexus, and that is of Lock Driving's Dennis Kroll. Behind the wheel, but Dave Hedges currently running the 156.8 in terms of pure lap pace here at the moment for the Hungaroring 3 hours here. But those curbs look incredibly deadly. You can just see how slick they are, Steve.
Absolutely, indeed, yeah. I mean, I'm just going to sort of take a wild guess that when Dave Hedges and Regan Mitchell were doing the pit stop, maybe Regan Mitchell didn't select Dave as the driver, and that's why they've had to make that extra pit stop just to swap, and it's put them down into 7th place. Just to be clear to anyone who's not familiar, I know most of you will be, but when the driver is coming into the pits, he cycles down a menu and he has to select the driver he wants to put in the car. Even if there's only 2 of you in the team, he still has to highlight his name, and if you don't do that, it won't swap you. So there are other connotations that can affect it, but that's the most likely one, because I can't see any other reason for them to have made that extra pit stop, and that has dropped them to 7th. But let's not count out a fight back now to get them back on the podium. They've certainly got the pace with both drivers, as Dave really living up to his sideways name there as he throws the back end of that Ferrari round that corner.
Yeah. Hashtag Drifter Dave is back again. That was...
Just to mention, Alex, we've got Aaron van Drunen in the interview room, I believe. I've just told him to jump up. He's one of the admins, so he should be with us now.
Hi, Aaron. Thanks for joining us here. Interesting race so far. Obviously, after about 50 minutes, the rain decided to hit hard. And yourself and Anthony, you guys are currently... I'm just having a look at the timing screens at the moment. It's just with so much going on at the track at the minute. It's a bit of a busy one. And you guys are currently running in the 125, and you guys are currently down in 24th position. Has there been anything that's compromised the race for you guys so far?
Yeah, pretty much. We love to drive in the rain, so it's in our benefit. But somebody spun out and had pretty much of an unsafe rejoin. We drove straight into them, and we had 2-minute repairs.
Okay, so that was an unwanted pit stop and an incident that you had nowhere to go on, so we completely understand that. But there's still plenty of this race to go. Obviously, I would think, just by the pace that Anthony's showing at the minute, you guys could probably aim for at least probably not just the lower part of the top 20, but maybe even the top 15 if things go a bit easier over the next hour and 3/4, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, exactly. We were aiming for the top 10. Yeah, compromise our race pretty much, but the benefit, we have done our mandatory driver swaps, so that's one less concern.
Yeah, absolutely. And with 1 hour 45 minutes to go, I was just saying before you joined us in the interview room, to be fair, nobody's out of a top 10 at the moment, and nobody's realistically, there's still chances of many people claiming podiums, because we've got 1 hour 45, so we've got over half the race to go, and many things can change, and we don't want it, but bad luck can befall other people, or mistakes can creep in, and it can all change within a couple of laps.
Yeah, exactly. We are just keeping our head up and go as fast as we can and don't give up.
But it looks like I've just got him on screen. Anthony's on screen now, and he's really he's pushing, and he's just he's passing a few people on track at this moment in time, and he's like you say, he's looking very strong in these conditions, to be honest.
Yeah. fact, the number 3 and 4 were holding us back. So.
Cool. I mean, his last lap was 56, which, to be fair, it's not a bad lap time when you consider that Walker in P1 did a 56 also. So he was actually almost a tenth faster than Walker, who's in first place. So yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm expecting now. I've noticed that I'm expecting to see a great fight back. So let's see if we can get back into the top 10, buddy.
Just keep the rain coming.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's looking like it will do.
Yeah. Well, Aaron, thanks very much for spending some time with us, and good luck for the rest of the race.
Okay. Thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay. I have to give another shout out to Princess Platinum here. That the NSX that was down in 25th position. And is now up. That is the number 97 Honda, and that was the team of Chris Hill and Tim Muris. They started 18th, they dropped to 25th, they're now up into 8th position. As now Hedges back into the pits, and there's still quite a lot of drivers running. I mean, Walker's still running the 56 4s. Junior in the 969 Bentley has put in a 55.7. Morin in the 137 has put in a 156.7. Just keep your eyes on a few other drivers that are really pushing hard. Like say Kroll in the 33 Lexus has put in a 155.2. So this track is coming to the drivers. And then you have a look at the 301 Bentley of Lenson. It's put in a 154.5. That's incredibly crazy in these weather conditions here.
Yeah, well, it's the Boatley, isn't it? It's coming to its strong point, and it's broke free from its moorings, and it's putting in some great lap times. And like we said before, we know it's capable of it. If the drivers can handle it, it can do it. And Mark Neutlin's in the chat has got great experience with the Bentley, so it'll be interesting to know what Mark thinks. But it is a good car. It's a good all-round car, is the Bentley. If you can come to terms with it, it's the cars in ACC are not just pick up, drive fast cars. They pick up and drive. You can drive them. You can have a lot of fun. But when you're trying to extract the times that these guys are, especially at the sharp end of the field, you need to put a lot of time and effort into practicing, as all these guys have, and not only the practice but the setups as well. There's a lot of work goes on behind the scenes. There's many hundreds of laps get put in these cars just to get them set up to feel right, and then it's all down on the day. It's down to the driver and the consistency. Yeah, very true indeed. As we're now on to the 43rd lap of this race, we're fast approaching half time in about 11 minutes and 40 seconds, as there is Aaron Walker absolutely storming his way. I mean, the thing is, Dane Jr. in the 969 Bentley has had a big moment. His last lap was a 2:02 minute 5. The gap now extends to 16.1 seconds. So did Junior actually have a moment? That's what I'm sort of thinking here. Yeah, absolutely. It's looking like he did, because, like you say, 2:05 is obviously it's 9 seconds or so off where they are. 8-9 seconds. Walker's lap wasn't the fastest, but they're in among traffic as well, so that's going to affect them. As it's looking like that's Regan Mitchell or Dave Hedges, whoever's at the wheel of that one behind them now in the Ferrari. So obviously they've pitted and they're a lap down as well now. So things going from bad to worse, unless they've got a different strategy that's going to maybe all change in the last 45 minutes of the race or so. Well, at least the good thing is that if they're in their own channel, they won't need to say anything like Strat 5 or hit the overtake button, that kind of thing. Like what's probably going to be currently happening in Bahrain at the moment for Formula 1. But Zviedink, also that's the Sim Racing Holland Lexus in the number 12, having to avoid. Now, I'm just wondering who that is. That is the 79 McLaren of Denise Pope that he's just had to go around the outside of through turn number 1. And it's got Zimmerman in the 166 not too far behind the Audi. So that's the battle for 11th position on the road, as we're 1 hour and 40 minutes still to go. Can you believe that 80 minutes has already gone past? Yeah, absolutely. It's flying by because obviously we've got the excitement of that first stint with the lap times, then we've got the rain coming along, and you've got such good company, Alex. So it's going to fly by, isn't it, mate?
Well, also a big thank you to Aaron for joining us a little bit earlier on for our first interview. Hopefully, we'll get some more drivers in. It's quite funny with what we've actually got with the relevant channels in Discord, haven't we? On the server here, we've got the shed with windows, which is us, the commentary box. We've got the shed without windows for those waiting to come in, and then we've got waiting for the shed. So there's a bit of a Jimmy Broadbent influence there. I have to give that man a shout out. He does fantastic stuff. Jimmy Broadbent, one of the more influential individuals within the sim racing community, alongside Jardier, amongst others.
Yeah, the sim racing community is a fantastic community, and it's such a big community now, and it really is great. As I said at the top of the show, at the start of the race, it's fantastic how everybody can come together, and we make every community's race a big race by drivers from all over entering and promoting as well. But I'm just going back to Anthony Tahorse now, because he's still putting in those 57s. Yes, he's not the fastest man on the track, but he's pretty damn consistent. He just keeps doing that lap after lap at the moment. So after a bit of as we heard earlier on from Aaron, they had a bit of an issue with somebody with an unsafe rejoin causing them some damage. He's on a comeback drive, and I'm just going to make a note of where they are now. They're 24th. Be interesting at the end of the race to see if they can climb back, because with his current pace, he's lapping quite a bit faster than a lot of the cars in front of him.
Yeah, well, you've got to look at who's in front of him, actually, in 23rd position, and is 7.2 seconds up the road. That is the number 98 Ferrari of Pulse Motorsport B's Jordi Bakker. And there is the car itself in that very McLaren-esque papaya orange and light blue combo. And there looks to be an Aston Martin just behind.
That was Hinden. We're just watching Steve Hinden now. That Clements has obviously pitted again, but somebody who I believe Hinden was lapping has just spun off into the barriers as well. Wasn't quite sure who that was, but somebody had a very heavy hit into the barriers.
Oh dear. So yeah, that's what. Yeah. Now I've just had. I've now just seen how many voice chats we've got. Oh my goodness me. Quite a few. But yeah, it's a real shame for when drivers are pushing so hard that they push too hard in some cases, and that can cause a bit of a problem, especially when you've got a strategy you need to work to, and that's when it really can sort of scupper your race. And if you were planning for a top 15 or a top 20, it really sort of puts a bit of taste in the mouth, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, it does. But one thing I have noticed, and I've not mentioned it so far. Obviously, on the hood on the left-hand side, the display, the timing tower, we normally get a pit count. So when we say there's 3 mandatory pit stops, where there's a green bar, it should say 3. And as the drivers take their pit stops and they're counted as a mandatory, that number will reduce until they've done all of them, and then it goes green. So at this moment, I don't believe the server's maybe been set up to do that. So it may throw some unusual pit stop lengths into the equation. Not quite sure how that's going to work out. So we'll have to keep an eye on the field and just to try and get an idea of where everybody is, because we don't have that visual aid at this moment to help us.
Oh dear. Tim Kroll has just posted on YouTube. This is one of the drivers. It's both him and his brother Dennis that are running the number 33 Lork driving Lexus. He's just said P3 somehow, and Tim has just said, my brother's force feedback is not working. No joke. And I was just like, oh.
That's not good. In these conditions, you need as much information back through that wheel as possible, because obviously the understeer, the oversteer, everything, as we just seen Denise Pope there just running wide onto the curbs, and you saw that car twitching ever so slightly, but she managed to keep it all together and keep things going.
Yeah, so we've got the number 313 That is the pink pig, a pair of pink pigs entry. That's Patrick Tractor. Good afternoon, Simply Race. And Tim Krause has said it's from the start of his stint, and he's still pulling this off. I must be honest, Tim. Dennis is doing an absolutely fantastic job. To still be, he's only 17 seconds off of Dave Jr. in the 969 Artworks Bentley, and he's still keeping up. And he's running in the 155 fours. That's impressive.
Yeah, I mean that is impressive. I mean, we've got, like you said, Dennis Kroll there. He's really putting in some good times. 55 fours are very impressive times, and literally, he's up pretty much nearly 2 seconds a lap faster than the guys in front of him. So that's going to do. He's going to pull that gap down very soon.
Yeah. So it's just one of those things that you just have to sort of grin and bear it. I think as the iconic song lyric goes, when the going gets tough, the tough get going, and that's what Dennis Kroll is doing round about now in third place.
It could be when the going gets wet, the Boatley gets motoring, couldn't it? I don't know. It's
well, that's dependent on your definition there, but the track temperature's dropped a couple of degrees since. Moving on, the track temperature, it was 22 degrees. From when we started the race, it's now down to 20. Obviously, with the wet weather now, and in many respects, obviously, for those that are aware of ACC with the DLC updates and everything like that, there was a software patch as well that changed the sidewall composition on the tyres. And from a driver's perspective, as the 137 Porsche from 9th position with Wojciech Moore in pits, Steve, just give us an idea of how that has changed the handling of the cars between the previous variation.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be honest, in the wets, I'm not quite sure because I have not tried it. But in the dries, it just takes the tyres a little bit more time to sort of come up to temperature usually, and the first couple of laps or so can be sketchy. A couple of the lads that have done longer races have said that the tyres feel like they can last a bit longer now, but I think that's down to a lot of that's down to setup as well, how you've got the car set up, how aggressive the setup is, because you really can. I mean, for anyone who's not used ACC or is not familiar with the sim side of things, it's more than just driving these cars. The setups can be as complicated as you want, and ACC actually couples up with the real world Motec, which is a software that's used in the real world for tuning race cars and setting them up as well. So it is really a very in-depth thing to get involved with, and it's a very satisfying thing to get involved with when you make a tweak and you actually feel the car responding better to it. So it's a whole different side to just driving the cars.
Yeah, so it looks like Aaron Walker has pitted from the lead, and the lead has now gone to the 969 Artworks Bentley of Dave Jr. So there is Walker in the pits, and there is Dave Jr. He is currently making his way. I'm just going to have a look on the... It's currently running through, and that is through turns 8 and 9.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is that the first time that Walker's lost the lead in this race, or Walker, Haley have lost the lead in this race. I think it is, isn't it? Yeah,
because the gap was about 20 seconds, and with the wet weather conditions, you're going to be a bit more. You're going to basically be tippy-toeing going into the pits to try and make sure that when you do hit the brakes, you don't go sliding across the line, and your speed is more than 50 kph, because otherwise that gives you a stop go 30 without blinking.
Yeah, and that was interesting. That's Steve Hinden in front of him, who's just unlapped himself. He's doing 155.6s as well, so he's putting in some good lap times in these wet conditions, it has to be said. But he's unlapped himself now, and by unlapping himself, he needs to make sure he can make good progress, because he's going to get those blue flags waved, and if he starts holding up that Bentley behind him, he's going to have to let it by and put himself back down a lap.
Yeah. So we've got a stop-go penalty. That's a stop-go 30 for the 967 Dynamic Racing McLaren. So Markesh in that car will have to serve a stop-go 30 very shortly. And they're running in the Jensen Team Rocket RJN colours with the World Fastest Gamer 2 logo, because James Baldwin has been running with them in in British GT this year, which saw both Chris Buncombe and Jenson Button take to the track at the Silverstone 500 just a few weeks ago with a very modified livery, but having Sky plastered all over it.
Yes, Steve Haley's dropped back out now. He's back out of the pits and he's into 8th place. So he's got a bit of work to do. But let's not forget, they've made that extra pit stop to a lot of the guys in front. Because I think it seems that a few of the guys up front are trying to go a bit longer with the wet tyres.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think also it does help that if you get the tyres up to temperature, you can then sort of start to micromanage them a little bit more. It looks to be that Yamach is the one that's going to serve that pair. Evelyn Yamach in the 967 will serve that stop go 30. So Marcus would have been the driver in the pits and would have been the one that would have been caught speeding. So whoops, unfortunately on that one. But this is a great drive from Dan Lenton in the number 301 Bentley, the One Fast, One Furious crew. Currently up to P7, and Steve Haley is about 5 seconds adrift. But then also one of the biggest things there is that Junior in the 969 Artworks Bentley is leading the Lock Racing 33 Lexus with Dennis Kroll behind the wheel, but by only just under 15 seconds. So as soon as Junior pits, then Kroll will effectively inherit the lead as we're past the halfway point here at the Sim Racing Hub International 3 hours of the Hungaroring.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dave Junior's putting the laps in, but he's dropped off a little bit. So whether the weather's getting any wetter, I'm not quite sure. I don't think it is, or whether it's just a bit of wear starting to come into those tyres. I'm saying that, but he's still in the 57s. But we have seen him in the 55s, so he's a couple of seconds off where he was with that car originally. And in fact, Hinden did unlap himself, and he has started to stretch a gap out. So he's going to stay unlapped unless he makes any mistakes. By the looks of it.
Looks like there was a car to the side of the road there on the left-hand side of the track. So someone might have had a little bit of a clattering into the barriers.
Yeah, I think that was 967 that had a bit of a clattering.
Well, that was Yamach, who's now on the circuit. We're back on the circuit, letting one of the Aston Martins go past. So yeah, and Yamach has still got to still got to serve the drive-through.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's bad to worse, and that's going to drop him a long way, even further down the order. Obviously, he's currently showing in 20th place out of 29. So I suspect that's going to drop him well down the order. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 cars behind him are on the same lap, and then the other cars are all sort of a lap further off than that. So he might drop back out in 25th place, something like that. But yeah, it's certainly going to do him a lot of harm.
Yep, so with 1 hour and 26 minutes and 58 seconds, there's Regan Mitchell. He's currently in P11, and that car is just on a 154.7. And then you've got Burnswood in the 747 now. Is that the car just up ahead?
That is indeed, yes. That looks like that could be a battle for position.
Well, considering the fact that Regan Mitchell, Steve, was nearly 4 seconds quicker on that last lap alone. So it looks like Burnswood had a massive moment because that gap has come down from what was 4.4 seconds to 4 tenths. Oh, Regan Mitchell ran towards the outside. A little bit of a clash with the left-hand side of the Aston Martin. He's got to really give that position back, I think, my honest opinion, because he went for it. There was enough room, but I don't think, with the wet weather conditions, I think it might have just caught Regan out a little bit slightly there.
I think I think it was more a case of he had more pace through that corner, and maybe that 747, of Burnswood, he just lifted. He was maybe going to run wide, and that's what caught Regan out. It was more like avoiding action, I think, to be honest. But there was definitely looked like there was a bit of a brush which forced Regan to run wide. But he kept his foot in and he's gained that position. I think maybe it might be one for the stewards to look at afterwards, but for me, I think it was more the fact that Burnswood probably lifted in that corner and made him have to run wide.
Yeah, it was a bit of 1 is 1 and 500 of the other, so to speak. But yeah, it's going to be rather interesting. I mean, Cole, even with no force feedback, is closing on Junior, and I'm just looking at the lap times: a 157.2 from the number 969 Bentley, and the number 33 Lock Racing Lexus on a 156.0. That is incredible pace. Look, the gap's coming down again. It's now 13.2.
It's incredible pace. It's incredible pace. But Haley pitted out of the lead. He's put fresh tyres on. Oh, sorry, Walker pitted. Haley's got in the car. They're on fresh tyres, and he's now doing 54.5s. So he's easily going to undercut those guys and get back in the front as long as he doesn't get held up by anybody, or this is him now battling for 7th place, and as long as he doesn't get held up too much, he's easily going to take the lead back when those guys have to do their pits.
Well, as long as he gets past the one fast, one furious 301 Bentley of Lenson, he's got an absolutely brilliant opportunity. But look, the gap was 13.2 seconds between Junior and Kroll, as now Haley trying to hustle that Ferrari past the Bentley, and Lenson making that back end of that Continental GT3 as wide as humanly possible. But Haley gets a good run. Lenson defends. Haley towards the outside. Wipers going like crazy. And Haley trying to keep it around the outside through turn 12. He's got a good run. He's got the move done before they've even hit turn 13. Brilliant job there by Steve Haley. Absolutely anticipated it like a good one.
Absolutely, yeah. He wasn't going to get held up. He's fully aware he needs to bang those lap times in so that he doesn't lose time to Dave Jr. or Kroll up at the front, because he obviously, when they make the pits, as I said earlier, he's going to retake that lead unless he gets held up. And that's always the difficult bit when you make your pit stop a little bit earlier than maybe your competitors are, is that you get caught up in traffic. But at the moment, he's fighting his way through the field.
Well, Yamach has just come in to serve the drive-through penalty. But I've noticed something quite significant. You know what you're saying about that Bentley, that the tyres were dropping off? Well, Dave Jr. had a massive moment on lap number 51, which was a 2 minute 7.9. And then Dennis Kroll did a 1 minute 56.2. So in that, what was like literally a 13.2 second lead quickly dropped to around about 2 seconds, which is the gap now between Junior and Kroll. So Kroll now really, through all that work and Junior's mistake, now has that opportunity to not even, I think, battle for the top 5, but maybe even a podium, because that 33 Lexus has been doing a great job between Tim and Dennis at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. He's doing a fantastic job. He's being consistent, as we said. He's putting those lap times in. He's in the 56s all the time, and he's just consistently doing that. He needs to keep doing that, and he's putting Junior under a certain amount of pressure. I think Junior's probably putting himself under a certain amount of pressure, which is more to the point, because he'll have seen that gap coming down ever so slowly, but while that Lexus wasn't in his mirrors, it certainly is now. It's getting ever closer, and it's going to start putting him under more pressure as he's taken another half a second out of him on that lap alone. The gap is now down to pretty much a 2 second dead gap, so very much so. As we see the Lexus run very, very deep, very, very wide, that's not what he wanted to do, and that's probably cost him the half a second he made up, but he'll get straight back on it, and he's going to charge hard again, and he'll probably have that gap closed down within the next sort of lap and a half, I would say, if not sooner.
Yeah, I have noticed there has been some talk in the disconnect channels, so some teams are actually struggling with getting back onto the server again, as we've got just over an hour and 20 still remaining. But at the moment, the gap now, yeah, he didn't just lose half a second, Steve. That was more like 8 tenths, because of the gap now up to 2.4 seconds between Dave Jr. from Artworks in the 969 Bentley and the number 33 of Lock Racing Lexus 33 of Dennis Kroll. And quite interestingly enough, Lork is actually Kroll spelt backwards.
Fun fact for the afternoon.
Indeed.
You've got far too much time on your hands.
Well, I've got. I mean, the thing is that we still got plenty. Well, my mouth is doing all the talking, not my hands doing the typing, which is what I sometimes do. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, even though Dave Jr. has had that massive moment, he's back into the 156.9, so he has started responding ahead of Dennis Kroll, who's in the 156.5s.
Haley's in the 53s now. His last lap was a 53.6. So he's a full sort of 3-4 seconds faster than some of those guys up at the front. So definitely he's got the hammer down as Haley, and he's putting in some fantastic laps. Just looking at Mitchell as well, the other car that was in second place of Hedges and Mitchell, that did a 1:54.8. So both those Ferraris are lapping faster than the current leader and second place.
Well, it looks like we've got a guest that I'm now going to pull into the interview booth. Looks like I will have. Let's bring in Evan Natafas from the number 79 TH Racing crew. If I can. Right. That's not working at the moment. I don't know what's going on there. Right. That's not working again.
No, unfortunately, we can't move people. I'll send another message to admin.
Yeah, I'll just send a message to.
But there's some fantastic times, and there's a massive variation of times at the moment on the server, and we've got sort of the leader at the moment doing a 56.7 last lap, second place 57.5, and we're looking down. Obviously, a few people may be having a few incidents, but we've got some lap times down in the 206s and indeed the 207s. Very tricky conditions at the moment, very wet out there, very slippy. The track conditions incidentally say damp, but I think it's a bit further than damp. It's looking like they're having to be very, very careful with which lines they pick. They're trying to avoid certain curbs. Some of the curbs are going to be very, very treacherous. Some curbs they will still be able to run over, but it's just about being consistent. It's about being safe, because we've still got 1 hour 18 minutes left. There's a long way to go, and there's a lot of positions to be made up for those drivers that can be consistent, because some drivers, undoubtedly will make mistakes and will give positions away. But like I say, more interestingly, I think Haley now, with his 1:54.1 and his 1:53 on the previous lap, he's back up into 6th place, and he's made an extra pit stop to a lot of those guys in front, and his gap at the moment to the lead car is 41 seconds, which is well under what it takes for a pit stop. So I expect when the cars ahead start pitting, Steve's going to have a healthy lead when it's all said and done.
Yeah, well, I'm just getting a message from Evan Natafas from the number 79 car as Dennis Kroll in the Lock Racing 33 Lexus is in the pits. So now the real strategy call is coming into play, and at the moment the gap was about 5.8 seconds between Junior and Dennis Kroll. So that's going to put the number 54 of Cox, that's Nard Cox from the Dark Sky Racing crew in the BMW M6 GT3, depending on how quickly they get around the circuit, whether that will bring them into, that is the case, so Kroll now will drop to 6th. So this means that Steve Haley, who is now 2.5 seconds behind Tim Muris in the 97 Honda NSX, is definitely picking up the pace of 1:55 from him. Muris did a 1:57.4, so Haley and Walker really steamrolling forward.
Yeah, very much so. And as I said, don't forget Regan Mitchell, although Regan Mitchell's last lap was a 57, not quite up to there with the 55s of Haley on that laps. But again, we mustn't forget these guys are coming up to traffic, they're having to lap cars, and you can soon lose half a second per car, if not more sometimes. So yeah, the lap times aren't sort of always reflective of the driver's pace. Sometimes it's a case of there's traffic on those laps as well, which has a massive influence sometimes more than it should.
Yeah, well, Evan Natafas, thank you very much for your message. He said, I said to him, like, we can't pull you in for an interview. Can you just give us a roundup on what's happening so far? Looks like the pair of Pink Pigs car, as I'm just about to talk about this message, has just gone into the pits, as it looks like one of the McLarens has done so as well. Evan says, well, we're currently struggling a bit on our tyres as our pressures are a bit too high. Overall, we're running about 5 spots over our starting position, and we're happy that we kept it clean. So Denise Pope currently in 23rd position, the 79 McLaren at the moment, hoping we can have a better time during our last stint once we've adjusted our tyres a bit. Well, thank you very much for that, Evan, and good luck to you, Denise and Lee Mosley, for the rest of this race over the next 75 minutes, as Nard Cox has got a that looks to be the number 11 Lexus of Bas van Mellis just behind, who's currently running in 20th position. Now Steve Haley is he's up into P3 now, because both 313 Porsche has pitted, as has Muris in the 97. So the dynamic of this race, and when I look at this here, Junior's still running in the 58.2s, Cox in the 58.6s, Haley well over 3 seconds ahead of pretty much the pair of them. He's flying, he's good old Steve Haley.
Absolutely, mate. But I mean, Junior, for me, for what it's worth, I mean, yeah, I'm maybe not the man to give out advice, but Junior needs to pit. He needs to pit. He needs to swap tyres, because those 58s are not reflective of where he needs to be. He needs to be getting some fresh tyres on there, maybe, and just getting out there and getting back into the mid 50s again, because we know that he's capable of doing it. He was doing it earlier, so he needs to do something. Otherwise, when he comes out of the pits, he's going to find himself actually losing quite a few positions just because of the undercut.
Yeah, very true. Very true. So, yeah, it's going to be rather interesting. We've got a yellow flag that will be briefly retracted. So, yeah, I think Junior needs to pit in the next lap or so. And he'll be handing back over to Marcel Vis very, very soon, I would imagine, because I think what he's trying to do, because the maximum stint time is 70 minutes, isn't it? Because it's 3 mandatory pit stops. So what I'm thinking is that Dave Jr., he'll get it to just under an hour and 10 minutes to go. And I'm just wondering when he got... Let's just have a look at when he got in the car. Well, considering the fact that Junior's been running in that car for nearly 55 and a half minutes, so he might run, I think, for another 5, do 60, and then bring the car back. And then that's probably the more strategic call, I would think, do a 3-stopper.
Yeah, but the thing is now the time he's losing, and the other guys around him have all pitted, so they're starting to get quicker. The time he's losing, by the time he does that and does his pit stop, he will do well to stay in the top 10.
Yeah, it just depends on how quickly Marcel Vis can bring the tyres up to temperature as well, because that'll be another key thing, because cold tyres on a wet, damp surface, which is now at 19 degrees track temperature, so a total of 3 degrees have been dropped over the just over an hour and 40 minutes of competition. And Nard Cox being pressurised by Steve Haley for P2. Now the race really, really on. Nard Cox goes defensive. Steve Haley looking at that opportunity in the run on the BMW that Ferrari has got. He's got up the inside. Cox runs wide. Haley goes up into P2 for the very next corner. That's turn 12. Well read by Steve Haley. And now he just has to wait for Dave Jr. to pit, and then he's going to put the pedal to the metal, and he'll have clean air amidst all those back markers in front.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a well-measured move, and it wasn't a silly defence from Cox or anything like that, because you've got more to lose than you have to gain from sort of being too aggressive on the defending. But Haley, he's a man on charge. He's closed that gap down very, very quickly, and he's putting the lap times in, and he's getting the job done. And he's not really, has to be said, hanging around behind anybody, is he?
No, I mean, when you look at it, Steve, his first stint was 54 minutes 41 seconds. He's just done over 19 minutes in the car. Aaron Walker, he's done just under 31 minutes. So this has been a real interesting strategy call from the SimSport Racing number 24 crew. As there's Chris Hill back behind the wheel of the 97 Honda NSX, now rounding out the top 11 position. So with a 1 hour 11 minutes and 44 seconds on the clock, it's Junior from Artworks in the 969 Bentley leading. Haley in the 24 SimSport Racing car in second, 28 seconds adrift. Cox from Dark Sky Racing in the 54 third, ahead of Lenson in the 301, one fast, one furious Bentley. Then it's the 707 Lightning Monkeys Mercedes with Daniel Ruiz behind the wheel, and then it's the Lock Racing 33 Lexus with Tim Kroll now behind the wheel in the number 33 and 6th position, ahead of the 52 SimSport entry, this time with Regan Mitchell behind the wheel. The Sim Racing Holland Lexus in the number 12 of Zvedink, rounding out the top 8, ahead of Makush, Radislav Makush in the 137. And then Henri Mietinen in the 313, pair of Pink Pigs Porsche rounding out the top 10. Still plenty of exciting strategy calls to witness here, wouldn't you say, Steve?
Yes, I can hear you furiously rubbing your hands together there, Alex. It's certainly going to be exciting for the next hour and 10 minutes as the guys, it's looking like we're maybe seeing a wet race right to the end. The guys are well used to these conditions now. Most drivers will have had a stint in the wet. They know what to expect. They know what's coming up, and they know what lap times they need to achieve. More importantly, and there is still a big variation on the lap times out there. Certain cars are adapting, certain drivers are adapting well to the conditions, and some are struggling a little bit more than others, and it may come down to our discussion earlier with depending on what setup they started the race on. Was it an out and out dry setup, or was it a compromised dry setup in case it rained? I mean, for me, when you go to an endurance race and the weather is variable like it is, you've got to anticipate a little bit of rain, and you've got to run a compromised setup. It's got to be the safest way to go, but everybody's different. Everybody will have made their own choices, but we are seeing a big variation on lap times at the moment.
Well, you remember we were having that chat with Aaron earlier on. Well, he's just messaged in our particular chat. He's gone, track seems to be ready for slicks, but I could be wrong. Laugh out loud emoji face. Yeah, nice one, Aaron. Try and put the wind out of our sails there.
Yeah, go for it, Aaron. Be the first one out there on slicks, buddy, and we will put the camera on you. That'll do.
Okay, looks like we might have. I don't know whether I might be able to pull this individual into the. No, I can't do it. I can't do it. But Tim Uris from the Honda NSX, the 97, alongside Chris Hill, he's with, and Aaron's just he said I do think so, buddy. I'm just going to message Tim the same as what I did with.
We've just seen Junior's actually making his pit stop now, so we'll see where he comes out. As I'm sure Steve Haley's coming round the last corner now, he's easily going to take the lead, and I think he's going to have that gap to the lead of a couple of seconds to the good at the moment. So he's definitely got the lead. He's just going past the pits now. Junior's making the stop. It'll be interesting to see if Junior can stay in the top 10. I think that's going to be a tall order looking at the gaps down the field, but he might do it, but I think he's going to drop outside the top 10.
Yeah, so I'm just messaging Tim at the moment, waiting for him to just respond. So yeah, we are having some admin issues with the server from myself and Steve's perspective, and trying to pull people in for interviews. So we just wait for Tim to get back to us on a message that I've just sent him. So yeah, Steve Haley now back in the lead on lap number 60 of this race, as looks like Nard Cox has also pitted. So the 301 Bentley, the one fast, one furious. There's a little bit of a slight wobble there from Steve Haley, but nothing too untoward. If that was completely sideways like drifter Dave Hedges, then I think he would be very, very worried indeed. and speaking of which, there is Regan Mitchell, Dave Hedges' partner in crime in the 52. So yeah, looks like we've got a message from Tim. Well, he's just typing away at the moment, so we'll give him a couple of minutes to just give us a roundup of their race so far for the 97 Honda NSX, which is currently now in 11th position with Chris Hill behind the wheel. Nard Cox, that might not be Nard Cox, that could possibly be Sem Spenkelink that might be back behind the wheel of that, so I'm just going to check on that at the moment. So yeah, there's still a lot going on. So that could be that Sem Spenkelink is now back in that car. He said, well, Tim basically said that we had a decent start, but we got tapped and turned around at turn 2, which was very much the case, that there were a couple of drivers that were not exactly probably happy with how the start turned out. They're still typing with a bit more of a response, but there's been some really, really good drives through this. He said it was dropped him down to last place, and it was difficult to get closer to the back of the field. But I think that the rain has probably assisted their charge forward to what has been as high as I think it was 8th place earlier on in the race itself. So and Chris Hill is now up into 9th because the number 66 Bentley is currently in the pits. So that's been a sure sign that the the team has been able to move forward, both Chris Hill and Tim Uris, and he said, he said we stayed out as long as possible, and when I pitted, and this is Tim, I had decent PSI on dry tyres, so that's where the pace came from, and that was when they were able to make those strides forward and move into where they are now, as they're just 4.5 seconds behind Mittinen. And he said that the pace has felt awesome so far, and the cars felt great. So thank you very much, Tim. Really, really do appreciate your comments on that, and good luck to him and Chris Hill, because we've got 65 minutes still to go.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's looking like the 969 has managed to come out into 5th place after his pit stop, so not quite as bad as I was expecting, but he's still dropped down to 5th place. Ruiz has managed to get past him in the pit stops, and Kroll as well, because I believe they were behind him at one point. Yeah,
they were indeed. Kroll was actually closing, and it's just it's just one of those things where you just have to try and see how you can eke out, and obviously the one big thing that we haven't mentioned about the Bentley is the fuel tank capacity on the car as well.
Yeah, absolutely, because there's no rules regarding taking fuel or anything. The Bentley has got a large tank capacity, but more importantly than the capacity, Alex, is it can be a bit better on fuel as well, so you need to carry less fuel, which makes it that little bit lighter and a bit more agile maybe. So there's that to take into account, but all the cars have little quirks. Most of them have some advantages at certain tracks to others. I wouldn't have necessarily thought that this was potentially a Bentley track, as it were, but they're doing a great job with it. It's in 5th place, and that's a very respectable position to be in, with just a shade over an hour left to go, so 2/3 of the race almost completed, and halfway up the top 10 is a great place to be.
Oh, when you think about it, Marcel Vis, he was the starting driver for Artworks, and they started P7. So to be in the lead at one point, and then to now come out into the bottom part, or the lower part of the top 5, it's just absolutely testament to how long Dave Jr. stayed out there. Now it's down to the likes of Marcel Vis, Steve Haley, Tim Kroll, to bring it home.
Marcel Vis has just done a 1:53.6, so he matched Haley's very early stint time pace, because Haley's dropped back to the 56s now, but Vis, his last lap was a 1:53.6. That's a pretty good lap on the wets, and that's a pretty good lap considering that would have been his first flying lap as well after the pit stop.
Yeah, very, very true indeed. And Haley's doing 1:56.6, so the tyres are possibly a little bit stepped, a little bit scrubbed, a little bit of deg thrown in there for good measure. You have to give a shout out to Lenson in the 301 One Fast One Furious crew. And they started outside of the top 15. They started 16th. And Lenson's currently in P2. Okay, that Bentley's starting to struggle now. It's running on the 1:58.3s.
This is a battle for position on the screen as well, Alex, between Chris Hill and Makush.
Yeah, Radislav Makush. They were running as high as P2. And that Porsche looks like it's definitely sporting the scars of war, especially with the... and that's on the other side of the car. So it looks like Makush and also Wojciech Morin having more than just one incident, like we saw with Makush and Daniel Ruiz, who's currently still in 4th place. Lenson from One Fast One Furious in the pits, as Makush now trying to go around the outside of Chris Hill. They touch. Oh, the Porsche spins, and Chris Hill narrowly avoids, and Makush span 180 degrees, pointing in the wrong direction. He spins the back end of the Porsche round. Well, that has really put the cat amongst the pigeons for Makush and Morin in the 137. That was drama at its finest, but Chris Hill just absolutely knew where to park that Honda.
Yeah, absolutely. It was hard but fair defending there, really. Not quite sure how much the contact was, but definitely the thing is, in these conditions, once the car starts to step out, it's very, very difficult to catch, and sometimes you have to lift, and that can affect it just as bad as not lifting. Sometimes the conditions are just so unpredictable when it's so wet, so greasy like this, and it is very, very difficult to catch those slides.
Yeah, very, very true indeed. As there is the number 77 Mercedes, and that is of Dakar Racing B. That's got Dimitri Schenk behind the wheel. They're currently running P17 at the moment, so still plenty of this race still to go. We've got just over an hour remaining here at the Hungaroring on the Sim Racing Hub International TV stream, which is being provided on YouTube. Tim Cole still in second position, but has just done a 2:07. He's 22.3 seconds off of Steve Haley. So the strategy from Walker and Haley has really helped pay dividends. But also Regan Mitchell, currently 5th place, and he's only 13.4 seconds off of Marcel Viss in 5th place. And Mitchell just did a 1:56.4. Viss doing a 1:53.4 himself. So that is 3 seconds quicker. So the Ferrari in the hands of Regan Mitchell. Well, Mitchell now coming into the pits.
Yeah, and Daniel Ruiz is in the pits as well, who was showing in front of him now. So that's going to be an interesting one. See who gets out first and back on track.
Yeah, very true. So I'm now going to send a message to the Audi Sport team Hubba Hop 84's Michael Hartmann. Obviously, with the admin issues that we're still having, I will just speak to him. So I'm just going to go mute for a second. So I'll be right back with you, Steve.
No worries, buddy. We're just focused on Haley at the minute, whose lap times just are up and down a little bit. And I'm suspecting that's down to a lot of the traffic and whatnot, because in the early parts of his stint he did 53s. Now he's just done a 1:54.6, but he has been down in 56s and 57s as we're looking like we're potentially under a full course yellow at the moment, as they're all slowing down to what I suspect is the pit limiter, and that will be to allow someone to rejoin, and it's the safest way to do it, and hopefully all the cars should be on the pit limiter now, running around at the same speed. It'd be interesting to try and work out who it is that's disconnected. Maybe do that in a moment from the timings and see who drops in, because they will drop in a long way back, and with just under an hour to go, it's going to be a big task for anyone to start making any big impressions on the leaderboard right now. Coming from the back, I think the battle up at the front now really is between the top 10, but the men in control at the moment is they are Steve Haley and Aaron Walker, who are in the lead from Tim Kroll in 2nd place, Marcel Viz in 3rd, Nad Cox in 4th, Daniel Ruiz in 5th, Regan Mitchell 6th. Regan Mitchell actually just dropped to 7th as it's updating. Chris Hill in 8th, Makush in 9th, Zeewink in 10th. So the top 10 all putting in reasonable lap times, although some of them were in the 202s, 201s, but it has been very difficult conditions for these guys to deal with. It's for the majority of the race it's been very slippy, very greasy, and we started, let's not forget, on an optimum track with decent temperatures, but after around about, I think if memory serves me correctly, it was around about 30 minutes or so, the rain started to come, and there were some of the guys pitted early. Just to recap, they pitted while it was still dry, and that will have cost them potentially an extra pit stop unless they could work it into their strategy not to do so. But some of them will have had to do a short stint and pit early just to get the wets on, because we approached what is a crossover time for the tyres very quickly, and that crossover time seemed to be around about the 1:56s, 1:57s, didn't it, Alex? And that's when they changed and came out on the wets and started putting the similar sort of lap time in.
Yeah, well, I've just sent a message to Michael Hartmann from the 84 team of Team Hubba Hop. They're actually in the pits, and they are in lot. They're actually 12 laps down, so that car has not moved, I think, for a considerable amount of time. So obviously with the issues that we're having, it's a real shame that we're not able to bring that many people in for interviews at this particular moment, as we've got 56 minutes still to go. But yeah, with that full course yellow, I wasn't at all surprised that that we were going to have one during this race.
Yeah, it's a good system. It's a safe system, and the guys are now back up to full speed, and they are racing again. Hopefully, they've not lost too much tyre temperature, because in these conditions it is very difficult to keep the temp in there. But that is one of the drawbacks of a full course yellow. You can lose obviously brake and tyre temps, and also it knocks your rhythm. You know, you're not running around at full speed. So if you're battling, if you're putting in those lap times, it can be a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, thanks again to Princess Platinum. She's been our spotter today. If that is it, whoever you are, thank you very, very much. It was the number 90 that actually had the disconnect, and that is the Rapid Lawnmowers crew of René and Klaas that have disconnected, and that has got them down to 24th position on the road. And there is, make that 26 as Klaas Vester now back behind the wheel. And as you can see, Hartmann in the 84. That is the only car that has been sitting in the pits now for quite a considerable amount of time. So I'm just waiting for Michiel to get back to me. So I haven't had a response yet, but I have mentioned that we can't do interviews at the moment, which is a shame. I mean, obviously a big thank you to Aaron for popping in earlier on. It's just been one of those things where a disconnect can also ruin a race. Right, there we go. Right, so Michiel has just come back to me and said, first stint was really, really good. P23 to P10. But then we had massive issues after the first driver swap. His teammate, Ron Barcht, had a bug where the session ended overlay was actually on his system. So he was not able to reassign the pit menu. During all of that, as a result of it, the 84 got a pit stop penalty, a stop go penalty, as there is a Mercedes on the side of the track pointing backwards. Then they got a stop go 30 for speeding in the pit lanes whilst he was having the hassle of trying to sort out the pit menu error issue, the session ended issue, and then they were after that with a 5 laps down for having to serve the stop go 30. I'm just getting some more information from him at the moment. So you are our race controller. Thank you very much indeed. So now we know who it is, and so thank you very much for that. So at least the good thing is it's a good thing I've got the chat open then, Steve, isn't it, really?
Absolutely, yeah. It's, any assistance from any angle is usually appreciated, as long as it's good, clean fun. So it's not a problem. But thank you very much for being our spotter today, or should I say race controller. Just looking at these conditions, it's not getting any easier for these guys, and we're just looking at in ninth place now we've got Bart Zuinik. He's in the 154s, so he's putting in some good lap times, and he's just inside that top 10, and he's trying to make good headway.
Yeah, indeed. Michiel has just given me some more information, and at the moment, up until P8, and Michiel's just rounded things off with saying he did some laps in the rain with some good pace. But they were not able to do another driver swap, so they decided to park the Audi because by trying to do that, then they would have possibly damaged the races of other people as a result of it, which is a completely noble and honest thing to be upfront about as well.
Yeah, and Haley just runs deep into turn 6 there, which is the chicane, turn 6, turn 7, and just cuts it a little bit short. Interestingly, he just led a car by that it was Bart Zeewink that Howard was talking about, because they were lapping very, very similar lap times, but Bart was right up behind Steve Haley, and I don't think Steve wanted to take any chances, so he let him unlap himself, and he's certainly he's going down the road. He's putting in slightly faster lap times than Steve at the moment, but that just unsighted Steve, as we're seeing. I believe that's Chris Hill in the background, just running really wide there and using a little bit extra track.
Oh, and then some, it looks like.
Absolutely.
That does happen. That does happen. So. I just wanted to say thank you very much for Michiel Hartmann for just giving some information about Team Hubba Hubba Hop in the 84. I hope that's how it's said right. It's just one of those things that it can happen. You don't want it to happen.
Yeah, we've got Chris Hill coming into the pits now from 9th place, so that's going to drop him down a few. So again, it'd be interesting to see where he comes back out into the race when he joins. Just back up to Marcel Viz, who I did the injustice of saying I thought they were going to drop down to sort of 10th or further with the strategy they were running, but they are now back up to 3rd place, and he is pretty much the fastest man on the track at the moment. Although Tim Crawley's giving him a good run for the money, both guys were in the 53s on the last lap and separated by probably just under 2/10. So those are the fastest two guys, and when you compare that to Haley's last lap time of a 56.4, but I'm not quite sure if that counts that run wide and whatnot with Steve, but still they are lapping faster than the leader at the moment. But it would appear Haley still has that gap of 14.2 seconds as a buffer, so it's all looking pretty good from his point of view at the moment.
Yeah, indeed. So Marcel Viss, yeah. I mean, look at it. When you look at it's 33 seconds covering the top three. Nard Cox has pitted again in the 54 Dark Sky Racing BMW from 5th place. Chris Hill now pitting from 11th. So now we're going to see those strategy calls where if there are drivers that have been pushing like crazy, and I think that's what Marcel Viss is doing, there is a possibility that there could be another pit stop on the cars, because if they're pushing like crazy and those cars are lightly fueled, Steve, they're going to run it to the absolute bare minimum of fuel in the tank, maybe a couple of litres, and then put enough in for maybe say the last half hour, 20 minutes of the race to really get going. But then they compromise themselves once again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the beauty of the endurance racing and the pit strategies, because realistically you're never quite sure how it's all run out, or you're never 100% sure how it's all turning out until you enter that last phase, once all the pit stops are completed and it's a race to the flag. That's when it's all, this is it, this is where we're at, and in effect what happens is your 3-hour endurance race turns into a 40-minute sprint race potentially, or a best of 60-minute sprint race once all the pit stops are done, and the first couple of hours are usually just a jostle for position.
Yeah, very true. But that's what we're going to have over the next 48 and a half minutes. But I'll be right back in just a moment with you, Steve. So I will hand over the reins to you for about a couple of minutes, mate. I'll be right back.
No worries, Alex. Go put the kettle on, mate. And just while we're watching, we're just having a look at Tim Kroll, who he was the fastest man last out, and he did a 53.8. So he's running very, very consistently in those 53s, it has to be said, and that's very impressive in these conditions, and with the traffic that's on the track as well, because as we keep saying, obviously you hit the traffic and it can soon cost you half a second, and sometimes worse. But it's surprising me how much of those curbs they're using. I mean, Tim Kroll there was just fully committed, and the whole car was on the curb, and it was almost like a track excursion, because he was nearly over the white line and putting all 4 wheels out, but just managed to keep it in. So that Lexus is really performing very, very well in the wet conditions, and he's just managing to keep very, very smooth lines. He's hitting his braking points, he's hitting his apexes, and he is lapping in the 53s. Steve Haley's last lap, the car ahead of him in first place, was a 54.9, so he's a full second a lap faster, and that gap is coming down, because a couple of laps ago we was talking about a safe cushion to the leader of about 14 seconds. That is now down to 11.7 seconds, so the gap is coming down, and it's not just coming down a little bit, it's coming down quite considerably at the moment. So Steve really needs to keep his foot in, keep his concentration going, and get ready for that last stint, which I'm sure he'll be handing over to Walker, and I'm sure he'll be handing it over to him very, very soon, because we've only got 46 minutes of this race left. I believe, I might be wrong, but most of the guys in the top 10 will have to do another pit stop. I may be wrong, we just don't have the usual aid of the pit count on the timing tower on the left hand side. So we'll have to get Alex just to look into that when he gets back, just to see how many pit stops some of the guys have made, if he can, how many driver swaps they've actually done, because obviously they have to do three swaps to clear all the mandatory pits. But yeah, Tim Kroll is the man on the move, and his last lap was a 54 dead compared to Haley's 54.9, so that's another second out of it. So he really is making that Lexus work, and the back markers are behaving very, very well, it has to be said, today from what we've seen. They seem to be moving out of the way very, very easily for the guys, not too much trouble, and that's the way we like to see it, because we want the race to come down to driver ability, speed of the car, speed of the driver, and in these conditions, speed of the reactions as well, because don't be fooled, as many of you know that driving ACC, it is not easy to catch these cars in these conditions when you've got so much power going through those rear wheels. I'm pretty sure a lot of the guys will have got the traction control turned up, as we've just seen Steve Haley now making that what will be, I think, his final pit stop. So Tim Kroll just goes past the pit lane now, and we see him take the lead, so that's Kroll up into the lead of the race, but Haley will be handing over now, I'm pretty sure, to Walker, and Walker will come out now and race to the flag, but I'm positive that Kroll will have to make another pit stop. Marcel Viz, here's another man to watch. He's lapping in the 53s as well, albeit Viz is sort of he was showing as 27 seconds off the lead. Obviously that's going to change now, the fact that Haley's in the pits, so we will have to see what happens to Viz as well, because Viz is one I'm not sure of whether they'll have to make another pit stop or not. If they do, then it should pretty much be stations resumed of the top three. But what will be interesting will be to see if Walker can increase the pace, or in fact when Kroll swaps over to his teammate, whether his teammate can maintain that pace, because 53s in these conditions is pretty impressive. So Steve Haley, or should I say what will be Aaron Walker, they've got to stop go. They have got to stop go. That is absolutely devastating for the guys. That could have just thrown the win away for them this afternoon. A stop go for who I suspect is Walker in the car, so whether that was gained by Steve Haley on the way into the pits or Walker on the way out, I'm not really sure. It doesn't really matter, it is what it is. It's a stop go penalty, so that's going to hurt those boys badly, because they did only have a 10-second advantage before the pit stop.
Yeah, very, very true. That is how races can be won and lost. And I'm now going to bring in a driver. Hopefully this will work this time, from the 777 Pulse Motorsport A, Damien de Keyser. Let's bring in, see if I can bring him in. Hang on a second. Again,
is his third time lucky or third time? Let's not bother again.
Yeah, I've just PM'd him. So, yeah, I've just messaged Chris Hill and just said to him, still not working. Oh, dearie me. Hang on a second. I'm just going to try something here.
We could have some interesting driver interviews at the end of the race.
Yeah, I know. It's just proving to be, you would think that.
Yeah, just for people that aren't familiar, we're using Discord, and it's just authorities within certain channels that you need to move people around, and because obviously we normally commentate on SimSport, we have all the authorities set up for us there. This is our first time in this server, and it would appear we don't have the authority to move people around to chat to them, which is unfortunate, because I'm sure there's many people who will have had many stories to tell today, because the racing has been very interesting. It's been pretty action-packed. Has to be said, the last sort of hour or so has come more down to strategy, and I believe Haley is in the pits now. I say it should be Walker, but they're actually pitted. They've stopped, so they're doing the stop go now. They will be waiting to be given the green light to go. That's going to cost them quite some time there, and I'm not quite sure where that's going to shake out until the other guys pit as well, but I definitely think it's going to take the lead away, potentially second as well, so it may put them into third place if they're lucky, so last step of the podium maybe for them guys.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just asking for Chris Hill's assistance now, so it's yeah, I think it's just going to be one of those things where the race is just going to sort of come to the drivers, and with that stop go 30 for Haley, and Haley, that's changed everything now.
Yeah, and I think Tim Kroll, as I keep saying, I think Kroll's got to make another pit stop, but interestingly there, he's almost about to lap what will be Walker. It's still showing as Haley, interestingly, but he's down in 7th place. I'm not quite sure if I've lost track of driver swaps and whatnot, but yeah, it's showing Haley still driving the car in 7th place. Let me just try something. Yeah, it's still showing Steve Haley on the screen as well when we select him. So it would appear it's still Steve Haley driving the car at the moment.
Yeah, looks to be the case. It's just one of those things where it can be a bit difficult. That the mistakes do come in the latter part of the race. We both know that, and I think a lot of people do know that as well. Because when you're mentally and physically having demands put on yourself, even behind the wheel of a sim, you are still going to be under pressure to perform at your A game. And if you don't have your eyeballs on stalks, it's going to be a bit more difficult.
Well, these guys that are running in this race here, and I'm not going to say at the sharp end, I'm going to say the guys running throughout the field, to compete at this level, you put an enormous amount of pressure on yourself. It doesn't come from anywhere else other than within. I know very much. I know Steve and Aaron obviously very, very well, and they enter races to succeed. They enter races, they have fun, but they want to play their A game. They want to be at their best, and they do take it hard when they have a bad race. They take it. The pressure comes from within, so they'll be disappointed at this moment in time. But with the 39 minutes left, it's about recovering, isn't it? It's about carrying on, and it's about focusing and just trying to get those lap times in and seeing where you end up. Because as I say, the guys ahead, I believe there's quite a few of them are going to have to make another pit stop. So we may yet see that number 24 of Haley and Walker back on the podium, but at the moment it's Tim Kroll in first with Marcel Viz in second.
Yeah, so we're just trying to get this all sorted out to try and get another interview. So let's just see, is this going to work? Yes! Okay, so we now have our next interview. Chris has managed to facilitate this, and this is... just going to have a look, just trying to remember the team names, there's so many of them. From Pulse Motorsport A, the number 777 Ferrari 488, Demian de Kaiser joins us. Demian.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can indeed. Sorry about that. Thank you very much for your patience, first of all, now that we've got everything sorted out. So you guys are currently running in 17th position.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, just give us a roundup. Obviously, we've got 38 minutes to go. You guys still have an opportunity of maybe making up a position or two by the end of the race, wouldn't you say?
It depends. We just had our final pit stop, and I don't know the strategy of the guys in front of us. I do know that the conditions on track are very tricky. I think there is no good tire for this condition. The wet has too much grip. The temperatures are really high, and I think the slick isn't working as well. So it should have been nice if there was an intermediate for this weather, but that makes it very tricky. I think the wets are gone in 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and Patrick has to drive a stint of at least 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It will be very tricky for us to gain more positions.
Demian, all the very best to you and Patrick for the remainder of the race, and thank you for joining us in the shed with windows.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Okay, next up, we are going to bring one of the SimSport Racing crews in, and it is the number 24, and we are now going to have Steve Haley joining us. Steve, right, firstly, you and Aaron have been putting in the hot laps, and I know you guys are down in 9th after that stop-go 30, but it has really changed the dynamic of the race for you guys, because the strategy you guys pulled with that epic first stint in the dry before the rain came down must be a bit of a difficult sort of thing to be now sitting at the bottom part of the top 10. I don't think he heard. Did he hear me?
His mic, it would appear his mic is on mute at the moment, unfortunately.
Just messaged him.
Cool. So we're nearly there. We can get people in the room, but just not able to talk to us at this moment in time. But yeah, it's going to be difficult. It's a bitter pill for the car 24 to swallow.
Right, okay, hang on a second. He's just said he's got no permission to speak. How's that happened?
Discord is a fickle beast.
Okay. Well, okay. Okay, he said... Well, that's weird. I don't know what's going on there, but he said it's suppressed. I'm just going to ask him to...
We go back to the old-fashioned messages for now, then.
Yeah, I'm sending him the Discord telegram.
Interestingly, Tim Kroll and Marcel Viz, they're still putting in those hot laps in the 54s. Tim Kroll's last lap 54.3, Marcel Viz 54.4, and Valenduc, forgive my pronunciation because I've just probably really wrecked that name, but his last lap was at 53.5. Quite a few of the guys in the 54s now, so it would appear the swaps with fresh tyres, they're coming out, they're putting the hot laps in, so it's going to be very, very difficult for people to actually make up positions now because the pace is coming to the guys. And as we heard in that last interview, it is difficult conditions at the moment because it's almost, I think he was alluding to say there that it's almost drying up to go away from the wets a little bit, but it's still far too wet for the slicks, so they are in that little bit of a sort of a crossover phase where staying on the wets is possibly the safest option, but you're going to be struggling with heat, and we might start to see a lot of cars running offline to try and cool those tyres and keep the temperatures down and keep things under control.
Yeah, I've just had a few comments come in from Steve Haley. He's still typing, so we will get through the comments that he's sending me. So I'm getting the telegrams back, Mr. Bradley. First stint was great. It wasn't really wet enough for wets as they would have been overheating, but it's not dry enough for dries yet. Okay, pull the other one there, Steve. You said that the Lexus is godlike now, and the reason why they got the stop go 30 was that he didn't hit the limiter when entering the pits.
Oh, bloody hell.
So a little bit too fast, and that's why they got the stop and go. Okay, so Steve, thank you very much, mate. All of that. Oh, hang on. Let's just see. Right. And then he didn't swap to Aaron, laugh out loud. Okay, let's just see if...
So that's the little glitch where the driver doesn't select the next driver, so therefore it doesn't swap you in the pits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so so I'm just having to message Crystal again. So yeah.
Just seen, I think Lee Mosley in the car 79. I think they've just had a moment just on what would be turn 1A. Turn 1. It's the first time I think I've come across a track where the turn numbers are 1 and 1A.
Yeah.
But definitely, I think he's just had an issue there. Correct me on chat if I'm wrong. But just to live and chat up a little bit, get involved, give us your comments, give us your thoughts on the race so far, because it's been a good race. The first hour, obviously, as we said, was really dry, optimum conditions. Some great drives, some great lap times coming in, some very fast race pace from the guys. But then these wet conditions have really sort of thrown a spanner in the works, and they've made it a little bit tricky for the guys. And like they're saying, neither tyre is sort of optimal at the moment, and it's a bit of a guessing game, and it's a bit of a sort of a tiptoe around and just find that grip. But yeah, just let us know in the chat what you think and who you've been supporting, and what the expectations are for anybody. What you think the podium's going to be at the end of the race, who's going to be on the top step, and indeed, if you're feeling brave, see if you can predict the top three. Okay, well, Steve Haley, I know you can hear me. Can I hear you now? Because I think I've unmuted the server.
Can you?
Yes, I can. Well, hey!
Good afternoon, sir.
Hello, mate. Hey, happy days.
Oh, we got there in the end.
Yes.
Technical difficulties notwithstanding. But yeah, thank you very much, Steve, for the comments that not hitting the pit limiter. I can understand
A bit of a rookie mistake.
Schoolboy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was huffing.
Dear, the banter's now going to come thick and fast with just over 31 minutes still to go.
Yeah,
in the race.
I was trying to faff getting the tyre pressures correct for Aaron for his next stint, and slowed down. I was still faffing with buttons and missed the pit limit button. Managed to get it on. Then when I got into the pit box, I hadn't selected swap drivers, so we had to go around again. But you got to take the rough with the smooth. You have your good races.
Well, just to let you know, Aaron Walker is currently the fastest man on the track with a 1:52.8, and he's lapping quite considerably faster than anybody else at the moment. Probably about a second faster and 2 and 3 seconds faster than a lot of the guys on the track. So he's really finding his pace at the moment. But just going back to that pit limiter incident, Steve, and sort of not to rub salt in the wound, I'm trying to sympathise with you. What is a rookie mistake? It has to be said.
He's not trying to rub the salt into the wounds there at all. There. Oh, you're proud.
I'm not rubbing it in, I'm pouring it on. But anyway, no, the driver swap racing compared to solo racing, it's a whole different ball game, isn't it? Because when you do come into those pits, especially in these conditions, it's the driver that controls the tyre pressures that are going to go on at the next stop if you want to adjust them, and anything else that, whether you're repairing damage, how much fuel you're taking, all that, and even if you are going to swap tyres. But also you've got to remember to scroll down and click it on to swap that driver, and it's all so easy not to do that, isn't it? And you've got to do a lot of that if you don't get a chance to do it on the straights, which, let's face it, there's not a lot of opportunity at Hungaroring to play around with your MFD, and not in these conditions. You're doing that as you're entering what is a hairpin into the pit lane.
Absolutely, yeah. There's very little chance you get to play with your settings and setup, and obviously it is all down to the driver to do. Which it would be nice if it was the other way around. If your teammate could have done it, that would have been even better. It leaves you to concentrate then. But obviously, with it being it's not really raining badly, but it's also not dry, so it's very, very tricky trying to get the tyres right. We've had three goes at it, so hopefully, obviously Aaron's putting in the laps now, so I'm hoping that we can try and catch up a little bit. I know we're 16 seconds behind 8th place, so hoping for is that they've all still got a pit stop to do.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think a few of the guys have got pit stops to do, and Aaron's last lap again was faster, 52.5, so he's definitely pulled the pin, and the next closest car was 6/10 off him on the last lap, and that was actually 3rd place, or which is now actually 2nd place, and I'm going to try to pronounce this name again. I've already murdered it once, but Valdunk. 10 out of 10 for 10 out of 10 for effort, but probably just about as good as your driver swap ability.
It's very Yorkshire name is that, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah, everyone should be a Smith or a Proudly. So absolutely, make it nice and easy.
Wow, there we go. Well, Steve, wishing you and Aaron all the very best for the last 28 minutes of the race, buddy.
Cheers, boys. Thanks very much.
Yeah, have fun, mate.
Cheers, mate. Laters.
Okay, so we.
I think I've run out of salt, Alex.
I think you ran out of salt by the time you just said that you were pouring it on. But also, big thank you to Natalie, who's in race control. She's the one who's AKA Princess Platinum on YouTube. 137. That is the Porsche. That's the CS:GO Racing 911 Porsche of Makulch and Moran. They've been. Steve needs some help with those. Neutling, well, I don't know how to pronounce Mark Neutling's surname right, because he keeps on badgering me about it, but I'm going to make it a bit simpler, because I'm now going to bring in, from the number 90 Rapid Lawnmowers crew, is the teammate to Klaus Verster, René, so let's bring him in. So, good afternoon, René. It's been a bit of a difficult race for you guys at Rapid Lawnmowers, hasn't it? Let's see if I can unmute the server for him again.
A lot of trouble. One disconnect, stop and go penalty on the first pit stop.
Yeah.
It was unfortunate for our track position.
Yeah, it has been quite an entertaining afternoon because Steve has been doing his best to pronounce Dutch surnames, and I'm not going to even attempt to say what yours is unless you want to give us a rendition, so at least I can hear it phonetically.
Well, in English pronunciation, it's Van Dijkhuizen.
Mm-hmm.
In Dutch, it's Van Dijkhuizen. So
Okay, so the N is silent. Okay, that's fair
Yeah.
enough. That's all right because I do deal with a lot of karting in Belgium and also in Germany, so I do come across a lot of Dutch and Flemish surnames. So it's but yeah, I mean, you and Klaus were doing really, really well. We saw you guys fighting at the sharp end of the field, but yeah, it's a real shame. But just to see a lot of the quality of the drivers in this race has been quite an interesting addition for Sim Racing Hub International, hasn't it?
Yeah, it is. Overall, all drivers on track are very aware of each other. There's a lot of gentlemen driving, I believe, giving each other enough space, even for position. I don't think I've had any incident with someone. Correct me if I'm wrong, but overall the racing is pretty good, and with the changing weather, it's difficult, to be honest.
I think you guys were probably more preferring the dry in the number 90 Ferrari, weren't you?
Well, we set it up for a dry race. Last minute we did some changes to the back differential for some more stability. But well, the race was interesting, and I think rain really levels out the field. Normally I know I'm not the fastest driver, but in the rain I was doing pretty well on lap times. It's just a struggle. Every lap is different with grip.
Yeah, Steve, have you got any questions to ask René as well?
No, I just want to say well done on the driving standards. I think all the drivers need commending on that, and as you say, because we haven't seen an awful lot of things go wrong in the stream. The racing has been good. The space given has generally been enough, and as you quite rightly pointed out there, even when it's racing for position, and I think I commented a few overtakes ago that people are being sensible about how hard they're defending as well. It's not always worth putting that hard defence up, is it? Sometimes you've got to play the long game and just to accept that somebody's maybe a bit quicker than you, and you're going to lose more time by fighting them.
Yeah, live and let live, right?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And then it makes for some fantastic racing for everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm sure at the end of this race, in the chatter, everybody will be saying just how much they've enjoyed it.
Yeah. Sadly, we have retired the car now for a couple of laps. Because of this disconnect, we lost, I think, about 3 or 4 minutes. Which is sad, but it happened last event as well for us.
Yeah, the disconnects are still a very frustrating part of ACC at the moment, and it's something that generally is out of the control of anybody who's involved, whether it even be the server side or the driver. It's just something that sometimes happens, and there's not an awful lot you can do about it. But the way it's being managed for the rejoins with a full course yellow, it's the best way to do it. It's the safest way to rejoin and get everybody back on. But respect to you for the issues that you've decided to park up. But you still sounding positive and still sounding like you've had fun.
I really did, yes. Thank you.
Great stuff. Great stuff, and thank you for popping in to have a chat with us. That's just adds makes our job easier, gives us a bit more information and a bit of interest for the people watching at home.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, René. Take care, and hopefully we'll see you next time, my friend.
Oh, we sure will be there.
Brilliant. Okay. So we have just 22 minutes remaining on the clock, and it's still, looking rather interesting at the front of the field. So Marcel Viss and this is the one fast, one furious, because Yannick Valenduk is the driver behind the wheel of that car, and Yannick is currently 22.7 seconds behind. So Dennis Kroll in the 33 Look Racing Lexus P3. Javier Berrio in the 707 Mercedes, fourth ahead of Dave Hedges. Drifter Dave, as is more affectionately known. Well, there are other endearing terms of endearment that we have at SimSport Racing for that individual, isn't there, Steve? And we're not going to go into them on this broadcast.
No. This is an away game, isn't it? So we'll not bring our home disputes to an away game.
Like that football analogy there.
I don't even follow football, but hey, I'll give it a go.
Oh, well, in for a penny, in for a pound there. Then we've also got the number 66. That is the Bentley. And that is Parker's been doing a really good job behind the wheel of that one. That's Joseph. You know what? That's the team that started dead last. They're up from 29th to P6 with 20 minutes and 50 to go. That's Joseph Parker behind the wheel. So both him and Niall Dodds have done an absolutely storming drive. That's the most position gained in the last 2 hours and 40 minutes. They're ahead of the Dark Sky Racing BMW M6 GT3 of Sem Spenkelink. And then we've got Frans van der Linden in the number 12 Lexus. That's the Sim Racing Holland Lexus. So they're up from 12th to 8th. Aaron Walker in 9th in the 24 SimSport Racing crew. Then it's the pair of Pink Pigs Porsche in the number 313 Henri Mietenen. And then we've got Evelyn's in the 131 of the team name that will not be mentioned. A very good reason. I still keep on getting a chort when I look at the race number and then realise which team name it is. So I won't go into any further than that. Good showing from John Clements and Steve Hendon, who qualified P4 in the eSport Designs Audi. They're currently running P12, and then it's Dennis Werkman in the number 11 Lexus.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to have a. Sorry, just to interrupt there. I mean, the Clements and Hinden Audi, that's had an interesting race because it qualified pretty well. It was running very high up at the beginning of the race. We saw a little incident that pushed him 2 or 3 places back. Not so much a big incident, it was just a bit of a tap, but it did cost him 2 or 3 places at the beginning. And I think Steve Hinden was at the wheel, but they just seem to have they've dropped back a few places rather than recovering from that. Because I think they were down in about, originally they were sort of 6th or 7th after the opening laps after that little incident, but they've just sort of dropped back a bit. So I'm wondering, it'd be interesting to have a chat with those guys if Steve Hinden's available, if he's watching the stream and he's hearing this, drop down to the commentary chat room and we'll just ask you some questions, mate.
Yeah, we'll drag him in. All he needs to do is go into the waiting for the shed bit on our server here, and that is actually what it says. So we're in the official SRHI International commentary shed. The shed. It's the SRHI shed.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to our SimSpots Discord servers and rename ours the studios, I think.
Well, I mean, in some respects, we're going to start sounding like Radio Le Mans when we're doing these sort of, what was it, like the Haggerty broadcast booth? Shout out to John Hindhaugh and everyone else. There's all a bit sideways there from John Clements.
A little bit squirrely, just fighting the control of that Audi as we just see him do it again. He's really trying to make some time up, and he's really struggling to get any purpose on those rear tyres and get some adhesion on the tracks. It's just stepping out all the time, but John is a very good driver, he's a very consistent driver, and he's making the best of what is maybe I would have expected a slightly higher finishing position for these guys, but as I said a few moments ago, it'd be interesting to find out how the race has gone for these guys and what incidents and issues, if any, they've had.
That was a 158.428 from John Clements, so that was up on the previous lap of a 159.6. But again, I think the rear tyres are starting to go on that Audi. I think it's the conditions, to be honest, because I think we haven't seen a lot of sprays. He's really losing it there. That's a proper tank slapper. That one was.
Is he gonna? Is he? Yes, he does. He managed to hold it, but he's really pushing it. I don't think it's so much the tyres are going. I think it's like all the drivers that have said before. The conditions just aren't quite there for the wets, but the slicks possibly it's not there for them either. It'd be interesting to know what tyres he is on, but he's certainly whatever tyres he's on, he's struggling, and we're just seeing one of the SimSport cars there. That's really.
The 24. I think that's the 24 that just shot up the inside. So that would have been Aaron Walker.
Yeah, I mean that's lapping him, so that's Yeah, Aaron's in 9th place and he's just lapped 12th, so that's interesting. It's he's lost it now. He's actually lost it and he's on the grass. So I think they've maybe put the slicks on. I think I might be wrong. I might be totally wrong. But the way that car's not handling, I think they've obviously got the wrong tyres on there.
Well, that'll be quite interesting to find out from both Steve and John post-race, because you can still see it. No, it's wet. It went from damp to wet. Oh no, he's lost the back end. He lost the back end there as we found a way to Dennis Kroll. Natalie, aka Princess Platinum, said from Race Control says Clements is on wets. So look, the track was damp. It's now wet. So I think it's a combination of both. I think.
He's hunting for a wetter line there by running down the pit wall.
Yeah, so
he's been in that car. Overheating, aren't they?
Yeah, 42 minutes he's been in that car. 42 minutes, and that's a big sign. So I think it's the way that the degradation's taken in. If that car has been sliding and now he's at a spin, that's going to add additional degradation. There may even be a slight flat spot on there as well, on the back tyres specifically. So, that's where it's going to really change things. The track temperature now is at 18 degrees Celsius, as I've just seen. That's the 166 of, and that's one of the Audis. Because now, Steve, I've just looked at the timing, and the top 5 are all on the same lap. Top 5 are on the same lap, and then it's the 6th. It's the one of Spenkelink in the Dark Sky Racing 54 BMW that is the highest driver up the order that has had at least a lap put down on them.
Yeah, now the reason I went to Dennis Kroll on the broadcast was simply because he's the man that's putting the fastest laps in, and not just by a small margin, by a large margin. He's doing 52.2s, and everybody, the next closest man at the moment in that top bunch is 54.6 from Yannick. So he's a long way faster. He's 4 seconds faster than some of the other guys, so he's on the move. Whether he can sort of close any gap up, because it's I believe it's 30 seconds off the lead, so he's got a long way to go to the lead. But it's not all about the lead, is it? Is that a battle for position there on screen now?
That is. He's less than half a second behind Valenduk in the 3:01.1 Fast 1 Furious. And I'm just looking at the lap times between him and Marcel Viss, who's leading in the 969 Artwork Bentley. The last lap from Viss was a 1:57.1. Dennis Kroll, who has been struggling with no force feedback, as his brother Tim indicated earlier on the chat, he did a 1:53. So he is effectively 4 seconds quicker at the very maximum ahead of Marcel Viss. So if he gets past the cork and the bottle in this little battle between himself and Valenduk, if he gets past, he can then push.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then it also depends on how much his tyres. Let's hope that his tyres have not been overheating, because that Lexus, I'm just trying to remember who said it.
Steve Haley.
Yeah, Steve Haley said that car was godlike.
Yeah, absolutely, and we know that in the ACC, in the forums, in the chats, in other communities, everybody says the Lexus is very, very good in the wet, and it really is looking like it is very good in the wet, because he's closed up that gap now, and he's right on the back of that Bentley, and it's looking like he's going to be trying to make a move before the end of this lap for sure.
Well, Tim Kroll's just informed us via the YouTube chat, force feedback is back. It reconnected during my stint. He's keeping his fingers crossed. Well, I'm going to do something else. Touch wood. So there you go. Once bitten, twice shy, as they say.
It's always interesting to go on board with these guys in these conditions as well, just to watch those steering inputs, and you can just you can see the Lexus, to be fair, for the conditions at the moment, dare I say, it's very, very smooth. We're not seeing too many corrections. It's pretty much going where it's pointed, but I'm pretty sure if we go on board with some of the other cars, we will see a little bit of seesaw action with the steering wheel as they're trying to catch it. And again, he's definitely looking for the wetter line. He's trying to cool those tyres. He's trying to keep things under control, and he's also trying to push for that second place. And then, like you say, potentially, if he doesn't run out of time with 11 minutes and 50 seconds to go,
runs wide. Valenduk runs wide.
He's going to cut back, but that's going to give That's going to give Kroll an opportunity now into turn 2 maybe, but it looks like Yannick's covered that off. He's run deep, he's run very deep, and that's just handed the position over, and it wasn't so much of an overtake as he just succumbed to the pressure of the Lexus, and now the Lexus is away and he's got to hunt down the lead, albeit it's about 20 odd seconds up the road, so 24 seconds I believe up the road, so he's got a big task at hand, but he is lapping round about I would say it would average out at over 2 seconds a lap. So it could come down to literally the last lap or two if he can maintain the pace, and that is a big if.
Yeah, because the gap now between Dennis Kroll and Valenduc now goes up to 1.3 seconds, and Marcel Viss is running in the 155.2s at the moment, so it's dependent on how quickly Dennis Kroll. So that was a 155.245. That was the last lap for Marcel Viss, who's about to complete lap number 88. And so let's say for instance, look, the gap's going to now start coming down. It's 22.8 seconds. It was 24.2. So Dennis Kroll is closing, and I'm just wondering. So what was that last lap? That was a 155.530. Now I want to see what Dennis Kroll's lap time is going to be. He's now going to come through into turn 14 now, as he's got one of the Ferraris just up ahead and through. Nice. That's nice and neat. From that respect, but let's just have a look at the lap time.
Just over 2 seconds gained. 2
seconds. Okay,
and that was while battling with the Bentley as well. Let's not forget.
Yeah, exactly. So now Dennis Kroll can really push. So that gap now is down to 22.2 seconds, and with the way that he's been reeling it in, just looking at So where the biggest time that is being lost by Marcel Viss from Artworks, it is in Sector 2. Because on that last lap, 43.4 from Viss, Dennis Kroll, a 42 flat. So that's where he's making up the time. That's where the Lexus is godlike, and that is between where you'll have... so Sector 1 finishes just before Turn 4. And then it goes all the way through to Sector 3 after turn 11 on the run down to T12. So that's where they're really making up that sort of ground, and it's in Sector 2 where the real fast and flowing bits is really coming to the Lexus.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's just driving it masterfully. I mean, that was a fantastic, when we saw him come out the last turn there to lap that car. He just held such a tight line, and there was no sort of objection from the car. It didn't squirrel, it didn't step out. It held the tighter line, and he got the drive out of the corner that he needed. And there was absolutely no compromise whatsoever required to get the Lexus round that corner. So he's really is in sort of, as Steve Haley said, it is godlike at the moment, and is loving those conditions, as we see Marcel Viss do a 156.4 on that lap. So again, let's see what Dennis Kroll can do, and see if he can gain even more time out of that lead. And it's certainly looking like he's pulling it down. And again, 53.2, so 52.7 in fact. So that gap has gone from 22.2 seconds to just over 18.5. That is 3.5 seconds there that he's just gained on that last lap alone, because it's not just about the overall lap time. I mean, I'll just give you an instance, all right? Viss had an absolutely shocking first sector of 41.3. Dennis Kroll of 39.087. That is 2.3 seconds in the first sector. So that Bentley starting to struggle. Again, he was nearly a second up in Sector 2 and half a second up in Sector 3. So Dennis Kroll, he's really pushing. Gap now down to 16.4 seconds with 7.5 minutes still to go. So there is the distinct far out possibility that it might happen. You might be right. It may happen, and it may well be on the last lap. Let's hope so, because let's have the excitement right down to the checkered flag. It's not what Marcel Viss wants. Unless his spotters have been telling him about Dennis Kroll when he was in third place, he will have been focusing on Yannick when he was in second, and he'll have been thinking, okay, that time's fairly steady. And then, lo and behold, all of a sudden, then Dennis Kroll goes past Yannick and gets into that second place, and that time is now tumbling down, and Marcel Viz needs to keep a very level head. He doesn't need to do a lot, he just needs to keep a level head and try and go just a fraction quicker if he can, and just maintain, just think, right, okay, we've got sort of 6.5 minutes now, the gap is this, just some quick calculations and just bring it home. He does not want to put himself under any more pressure than he's already under, as it were, because that's where the mistakes will come.
Okay, lap time from this 158.4, 152.8, 152.6, gap down to 13.3. Tim Croller's already told us via the YouTube chat. Thank you for this, Tim. We had 1 minute 14 seconds extra pit stop, plus he had 1 minute 8 extra for damage. So
absolutely. I mean, has anybody in chat, in the YouTube chat, Alex, been brave enough to predict a podium, or have they all stayed very, very quiet on that one?
Neutlings has said that he thinks that they're 1 or 2 laps short for P1. So
he might want to retract that statement now, I think.
Yeah,
Dennis
I was going to say, what are you going to bet for that then, Mark?
Yeah. In the, I think in one of the previous streams, I won a Snicker, so maybe I'll get something else on this one. We'll see. But I think Dennis Kroll now is really putting himself in a position to be favourite to win this race, because with the difference of that sort of lap time difference, when he does get up to Marcel Viz, it's going to take a Herculean defence to keep him behind, and I don't really see how he will, unless Dennis Kroll doesn't catch him until the last lap, which we've got 5 minutes left. And again, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, Marcel Viz, I can see.
I'm sorry. Things are just explaining on the chat.
Marcel Viz is 4 seconds down on his last lap, so he's really going to struggle.
This is where it's. It's funny because Tim then said something, then I translated Mark Neutling's sentence in Dutch. Said, "But your car is your Lexus is flying." Tim says, I think we're just short. Mark then just responded to your Snickers comment and said, "No, I don't." Crossman says, "It will be close, but I think Viz has it." Mark says, "Can send you a piece of cheese, Steve."
Just to tell you now, I'm sorry to interrupt because the chat is interesting and I think it's great. But last lap of Viz 201.9, last lap of Kroll 152.6. So that gap is now down to 3.5 seconds. It's game on. This race is Dennis Kroll's for the taking now if he can just mount.
Oh, Viz has pitted. Viz has pitted. Oh my goodness me! It was only a matter of time. I think that those tyres fell off a cliff. I did say, didn't I? We were thinking that
and
was
we're just
looking.
Oh, that's the car of Pope, isn't it? Her team, I believe.
I think that might have been. Let's just have a look. Just trying to have a look at the moment. Who that was? Excuse me. Yeah, that looks to be the colour scheme, but yeah.
I think that I think the Viz will have had to pit. I don't think it'll have been for tyres at this late stage in the race. I think he will have accepted the fact that maybe Kroll was going to catch him and he was going to probably pass him, but he would have stayed out there for second place. I think it's probably just to fulfil the mandatory pit stops, and maybe they've had to do another stop to swap drivers. I'm not sure. It'd be interesting to have a chat at the end of the race, but it's a very strange time unless the brakes have gone or something like that, and they've had to swap for brake pads again. That can happen.
Viz was safe for a stint. It's 70 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he had done 1 hour and 2 minutes and 50 seconds. So
they'd done enough
fuel.
pit stops.
I think it. Yeah. No. Hang on a second. They hadn't. No. So
yeah, it was one of the mandatory stops they needed to do.
Oh my goodness me. Just yeah. You're right. Because it's 3 mandatory pit stops. They've
Absolutely.
had to do it.
Yep.
So that means that Dave Jr. has to come in, has to finish it. And they would have had a 60-second time penalty post-race, so that would have dropped them out of the top 5 anyway. I think I've just had a message coming in, so I'm just going to check that at the moment. Aaron's just said to me, I was wrong with the slicks. Ha ha.
I think he was just trying to lull some of the other drivers that were maybe listening to the stream into
but what he's then put, he said, well, I did a 1 minute 52.9 though. Yeah, okay, whatever. But with 1 minute and 41 seconds here on the Sim Racing Hub International 3 hours of the Hungaroring, it's looking to be a really, really good result for the number 33 Lork Racing Lork driving crew of Tim and Dennis Kroll, with Dennis bringing it home.
And what's impressive about that as well is, let's just not forget, a couple of laps ago he was down in third place. He's now in the lead with a 10-second gap almost. That Lexus is really handling well. But it's not just the Lexus, is it? It's Dennis Kroll. He's really pedaling that car hard. He's pedaling it home. He's backed off, and I say backed off. These last lap was a 53.7. He doesn't need to do any more, does he? He's still a second faster than second place. But to be doing 52s lap after lap after lap, when every other driver that we've had in for an interview has mentioned that basically it's not wet enough for wets, it's not dry enough for slicks, it's very difficult out there. The temperatures are all wrong. Try telling that to Dennis Kroll, because he's been putting in very fast lap times and he's got the job done. He just needs to bring it home now, as we are on the last lap.
So the 94th and final lap of the Sim Racing Hub International 3 hours of Hungaroring. I think Natalie is very, very close to saying that Viz might be outside of the top 10. That's going to be Junior, because he'll have to get into that car because... Oh no, he's in 10th. Mm-hmm. No, outside. Well predicted, Natalie. Princess Platinum from Race Control. Viz is now in 11th place and dropping. That car is still in the pits. Now the timer hit 0, and our leader, Dennis Kroll, is currently heading towards going through turn 7-8 through the chicane for the final time. And well, that is really, I was going to say, Chris Crossman, why are they in the pits for so long? Have they actually repaired something? Or that's a big drama to have, being in the lead of the race, then pitting and dropping outside of the top 11, because now that's really going to be a big talking point post race, I fear.
Well, it's coming out of the pits now. He's just out, so he's exiting the pits. But yeah, like you say, that's a massive talking point. Something's gone adrift there, because that pit stop should not have been as long as that, unless it was brake pads. But I don't know. An interview would be nice, if possible, at the end of the race, just to clarify that for everybody.
But coming round the 14th and final corner on the 94th and final lap from 13th on the grid, it is the number 33 of Lork Driving's Dennis and Tim Kroll, brothers in arms and brothers in victory here at the Hungaroring. Vanik Valenduk from the One Fast, One Furious 301 Bentley crew brings it across the line, flashing the headlights to take second place. And then the Lightning Monkeys 707, pairing of Daniel Ruiz and Javier Berrio, will now come round with Javier behind the wheel and will take third place in the number 707 Mercedes. Looks like SimSport Racing will have something to, at the very least, to smile about, because Dave Hedges very soon will come through to take fourth place in the number 52. They did finish. They did start. On pole position, and dramas befalling both the SimSport Racing crews, with Aaron Walker bringing the 24 home in 8th place behind Joseph Parker. In the 66 H&L Racing Bentley Continental, who have had the most spectacular drive. They started 29th and last. They gained 22 positions to finish in 7th place. So there is the number 52 of SimSport Racing's Dave Hedges. He comes round the 14th and final corner, nearly doing the old Drifter Dave scenario there. And now he brings it across the line. Sam Spenkelink in the Dark Sky Racing BMW, looking a bit dirty in second hand. The 54 BMW crosses the line to round out the top 5. Frans van der Linden from Sim Racing Holland, the number 12 Lexus that started in 12th place, makes up half the differential up to P6 at the end of 94 laps.
It's a nice looking car, that, as well. I like
Oh,
that
yeah.
car. That's a very nice looking car, is that one. But yeah, absolutely fantastic race.
Henry Meaton and into the barriers. I think he got a little bit of a touch there from another car going across the line.
Just a little bit of afters after the flag. But I mean, yeah, that was a fantastic race. We had the dry. You know, when you're endurance racing, you want the dry, you want the wet, you want the action, you want the battles, and we got everything in abundance there. We got a great start. We had some dry racing. We got the strategy call of when to swap to the wets. We had some fantastic driving from everybody involved. We had great respect, when I can speak, shown. We had a couple of incidents. We had one incident in particular we saw where someone took someone out, but did the gentlemanly thing, waited, let the guy take his position back. Absolutely fantastic driving from everybody involved, and I'm not talking about lap times. I'm just talking about sheer commitment, sheer, respect for each other, and putting on a great show for everyone to watch and for us to commentate on. It's been absolutely awesome, and I can't wait to talk to a few of these guys.
Yeah, well, it looks like we might have somebody, I think, joining us at the moment. Patrick Vunst, if you're there, from SRHI himself. Patrick, what a hell of a race there, eh?
It was crazy, mate. It was really, really awesome, I would say. Our result was not that good, but yeah, it was awesome. It was a great race.
Looked like we saw some celebratory donuts from Dennis Kroll there on the start-finish line, so that was definitely well deserved. But I mean, just to see the standard of the racing, as Steve and I were just discussing about, was a real good thing. Very, very gentlemanly, lady and gentlemanly side of things in both respects, but also to see just how much some were really putting the strategies in. I think we do have to give a big shout out to the 66 Bentley of HNL Racing, making up the most positions at the end of it all, from P29, stone dead last, up to P7.
Absolutely fantastic, that, wasn't it?
That's insane. It's great to see all the guys drive really nice. It was no problems there, and yeah, it was great.
I think that means that Patrick is quite literally speechless, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I mean, Patrick, from one admin to another. When you're organising the events like this, obviously there's a lot of work goes into it, and some people may not realise, how much time and effort and work goes into these events, and it's not just a solo effort. There's a big team behind it, or not so big team, just a lot of work, but there's a few guys in there organising it, and you never really breathe a sigh of relief, do you, until that checkered flag goes. I mean, even at the start of the race, yes, okay, the server's held up, you've got everybody on there, you've got the race undergoing, but we take a lot of pride in what we do, and I think you've done a fantastic job, mate, so I think you should all take a bit of credit out of running a great event.
Thanks. Yeah, we will announce some other events today, I believe, with some other endurance races. So I hope all the guys who are watching and who are racing will join then, and we have some awesome racing again. And thank you to you guys also who are commentating on the stream.
No problem at all, Patrick. Always a pleasure, never a chore, my friend.
No problem.
Yeah, as I said earlier, it's been an absolute pleasure the commentating, because the racing's been pretty good. We had a very short spell where there was some big gaps and there wasn't sort of so many battles to look at, but we were spoilt for a large amount of the time where again, I commented at one point where I just kept looking down the timing sheets and there was numerous amounts of cars that were less than half a second apart, so it was good to commentate on, and hopefully everybody enjoyed watching it at home.
I hope so too.
Okay, well, let's have a chat with some drivers, and I think we have got a couple in. So just bear with me a second. I'm now going to unmute our two drivers, two brothers. It's the Kroll boys from Lork Driving. So let's get Dennis and Tim. Congratulations, guys. Well done. Brilliant drive. Started P13 on the grid, but as we all know, it's not about when they say to finish first you must finish. And obviously, Tim, I want to go to you first, because you guys you admitted on the YouTube chat that you had some force feedback issues, I understand.
I started the race and then Dennis took over, but he did a lot of out-tapping, to do other stuff. And then the minute he got driving, he lost his force feedback, so it was all visual correcting and stuff. but he still did the amazing lap times. So yeah,
yeah. Especially at the end, Dennis. Especially at the end, because you were catching Marcel in the Artworks Bentley, and then we see them pit with about a handful of minutes, and myself and Steve, we were scratching our heads. But the car really came to you guys, and I think a couple of drivers were quite quick to point out that the Lexus does enjoy wet weather conditions.
Yeah, but we also tried out before yesterday. We tried also a run with wet, so we already had some the tires almost correct. So I think that helped us as well for today.
Yeah, Steve, have you got any questions to ask the guys?
Yeah, it was an amazing drive. I mean, I was pretty much speechless because of those lap times, and you were in third place and looking like, okay, you're going to get second. That's a good result. But
that's what we thought as well, man.
Yeah, but the differential between the lap times. I mean, I'm not sure if there was an issue with that car in the lead, but that's their problem, not yours. You were putting in the 52s, but not just 1 or 2 laps. You were consistently putting those 52s in, and that is some impressive driving. And not only that as well, boys. I think the fact that you were driving without force feedbacks. I said to Alex when we found that out, in the wet conditions like that, you need every piece of feedback you can get, and to be driving with no feedback and just visual, that is fantastic driving. Well done.
Yeah. That was not easy, but at that moment we had already times in the 54, so we were a bit slower. After that I had feedback, so on that point we were quicker.
Yeah, and then, I also did a few 52s and 53s, but to be honest, we're kind of scratching how we ended up first as well.
What I will, the one question I will ask, obviously you mentioned there that you'd done some wet weather testing, so you'd got your tyre pressures about correct. We had a couple of interviews from a couple of other drivers that were saying that it wasn't wet enough for the wets and it wasn't dry enough for the slicks. It was really tricky. That they were struggling with wets overheating. Would you say that you think that's maybe just a case of it was the wrong tyre pressures that they had, or do you think it was it tricky for you as well?
Well, to be very honest, and this is not going to make the loss any better, to be honest. I checked yesterday evening or Friday evening. We had the 3-hour bonus practice thingy. And we didn't have any wet weather practice, but I have my own server, so I adjusted the temps and started up my own server, went around for half an hour and did the PSIs on wet weather, and then that was kind of our whole wet practice. So it was still kind of just eyeballing and going for it, to be very honest. It's not like we had like 4 hours of practice or anything.
Yeah, I mean, when we were watching that Lexus though, and we were watching it come out of the corners again, we both commented several times the Lexus, and we went on board with you as well because I said when you go on board with any other car, the steering wheel becomes like a saw in action where they're just left, right. But we went on board with you guys, and it was almost like it was an optimum track because your steering inputs were so smooth, so precise. There was no correction, and even when you lapped a car coming out of the last corner and you had to hold a tighter line, you still held the tighter line. You still got the drive to come out the corner as quick as ever, and you still put in a 52 on the same lap. So it's like, how are you doing that? That is just absolutely fantastic.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
thank you very
thanks.
much.
Yeah, still have no clue how we did it.
Not very good though. Yeah.
Well, let's have a rerun.
I'm down.
Yeah. Well, Dennis, Tim, congratulations. Well done on the victory today, and glad to see. Great job, guys. I'm out of superlatives now. So thank you. Thank you for joining us here in the SRHI broadcast shed.
Thank you very much. Also,
we're looking forward to the next event.
Brilliant. That's what we like to hear. Well done, guys.
Yes.
Cheers. See ya.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right, okay. There is one particular team that we do need to speak to, and let's see if we can bring them in. This is the Artworks team, Dave Jr. and Marcel Viss. Dave and Marcel, I know that it was such a difficult pill to swallow at the end of that race where we saw you guys come into the pits. I'm going to unmute. I'm going to unmute you guys both now. So, Dave, Marcel, I need to ask one particular question. Was it the brakes on the Bentley that forced you guys to pit as well as doing a mandatory pit stop at the end?
No. It were the tires that were too hot, but we had to do another swap.
Mhm.
And yes, and there goes something wrong. Explain it, Dave.
Yes. Yeah. So everything was going to plan, and we planned a very late mandatory pit stop with the driver change. My teammate came in, everything was going to plan, and it seems as if my pedals got binded to the keyboard midway through the race while we were looking through some settings. So he came back in, and we had no throttle, no brakes, and could not get the car going. We were sitting there for a while trying to figure out what's going on, and by the time I figured it out, the damage was done.
Yeah.
And yeah, quite a hard pill to swallow.
Oh no, it's you have to be
That's
funny all the
racing.
time.
Yeah, I mean, from our point of view, we were obviously watching the time come down, and they were catching you, and we were looking forward to sort of a last lap battle. We thought if they're going to catch you, maybe 1 or 2 laps to go, and there's going to be a fantastic battle. But yeah, that sort of got stolen away from us by your late strategy and having to pit. I mean, you did a fantastic job to be in the lead in the first place. That's not easy in those conditions, and within this field of drivers. So you did a good job. But how was the car generally in the wet?
The car felt very good. We can push the car to the limit. We knew that the tires were too hot. We tried out in practice with those tires, and it was all fine. But in the race, it becomes very hot. And but we managed to keep good times. And unlucky for us, Dave got punted by a back marker. I do not know why he did that, but we have reported him. And yes, there were also many drivers not seeing the blue flags, ignoring them. Cost us also a little time, but yeah, the races was fun to do. This problem it arises, but next time if we will do better.
I think these driver swap races are a learning curve, aren't they? Because as we've said a few times this afternoon, they are totally different to the singles in respect of obviously the car's setup is a compromise between whoever's driving it. It's not set up for one person. Your pit stops, as a driver, you've got so much more to think about when you're bringing the car in for the pit, haven't you? But let's not forget on this server this afternoon, we've probably got quite a few people that don't normally race together as well, and that always makes a difference, doesn't it? Because if you don't know the people you're racing with, sometimes it's you have to give them a bit more room or whatever. But I think generally the racing from our point of view, it looked very good. But was it just the blue flags you were really having issues, apart from that one car that caused a collision with you?
Yeah, there were many cars ignoring the blue flags and racing against us while they are 1 lap or 2 laps behind. And it makes you a little bit angry when you're driving because you are on the how do you say it? You have to put your tooth on the steering wheel, but
Yeah,
but it all happens. I know it all happens, and
it's the frustration, isn't it? It's frustrating.
Yeah. No, I'm not. We are not frustrated. We're a little bit disappointed because we could have been at least third, or yes, at least.
Yeah.
But yes, next time better, I guess.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, you take each challenge as a learning curve, and obviously you'll take something away from this one. You'll learn, and you've certainly got the pace to be on the podium. So I'm sure that once SRHI announce whatever they're going to announce, hopefully you'll be part of it, and you'll be battling for, if not just a podium, maybe the win next time.
Yes, for sure. And the next time it's also with Dave, because he did a marvelous job.
Fantastic. Alex, any questions?
Yeah, he's felt
No, that's it really. Marcel, Dave, thank you very much for taking part, really, and good to see that you guys were putting the Bentley at the front of the field with such great consistency as well. So well done, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we've probably got
Alrighty.
time for one more interview, I think. So we'll get our drivers from in second position. And this is the 301, one fast, one furious, from 16th on the grid. Finished second, the 301 pairing of Dan Lensen and Yannick Valenduk. Let's see if we can. I'll just see if we can. Let's unmute both Dan and Yannick. So, Dan, firstly, I wanted to speak to you. Congratulations! What a job from you guys to bring the one fast, one furious Bentley back home in second position after starting 16th.
Yeah, thanks. To be honest, I really didn't expect to finish so high up. I think top 10 was already before the race was top 10 is nice.
Mm-hmm.
But then it all played out in our favor, I think, with the weather and stuff. So great job by Yannick as well.
So Yannick, well done for bringing the car home. Obviously, it was quite interesting to see how quick that Lexus was, because we had Tim Dennis absolutely charging, and they closed up on you guys, and then went after Marcel and Dave, and it was just sort of like a case of it was look in the mirrors, wait for see if they're going to get past, and then they get past, and you just think, well, we still got a chance of a podium. So it's about bringing that car home, wasn't
it? Yeah, for sure. Actually, I think we would have been safe, but unfortunately, I made a mistake when they were catching us, when they were 20 seconds behind, and lost about 15 seconds of that lead. So it could have been more of a fight for the lead, maybe in the end. But they were charging through. I think they had a better pressures, because we had a little overinflated tires still. For both race stints, actually. So we were all wrong with that, but our strategy did play out very well. I think we stopped early and then waited until the rain.
Mm-hmm.
So that worked very well.
No, that's fair enough. Yeah. So and obviously, guys, just really one final thing, because obviously we all want to have a little bit of a break this afternoon, I think, after what's been an interesting 3 hours, but. Do you think that had the rain factored in a little bit earlier in the race, could that have made a little bit of a different strategy and still enabled you to go for that victory, maybe?
I think we couldn't have done any better, actually, except for the tire pressures. I think if the tire pressures had been correct in the first wet weather tires, and then the second one as well, we would have been about 20 to 30 seconds further up ahead. So we would have won then in that case, I think. So that's really only it. I think because we stopped early to prepare for the rain, I think we did that perfectly. There was nothing more that could have been done in that perspective.
Well, Dan, Yannick from One Fast, One Furious, congratulations as finishing as our runner-ups here at the SRHI 3 hours of Hungaroring. Well done, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for your commentary.
Thank you, gents. Well done.
Thank you.
So that really rounds up things here on Sim Racing Hub International for the 3 hours of Hungaroring. Steve Pradley, your final thoughts after what's been a dynamic, interesting, drama-filled, action-packed, overtaking bonanza here at the Hungaroring.
When's round 2? I want to come back. So that's about it, mate. Hopefully we've done a good enough job to get invited back to do the same again for these chaps. Really enjoyed it. Very well, organised event. The racing's been good. Fantastic community, and glad to be part of it. Thank you.
Indeed. Likewise here. So on behalf of myself, Alex Goldschmidt, and Steve Proudy, your commentators for the Simply Racing Hub International 3 hours of the Hungaroring, thank you ever so much for watching, and stay tuned for what SRHI announces very, very shortly. And on behalf of everyone from the community, it's a very good weekend from us.